just a FOIA request. Isn't it? I said.
There we go. Good morning, everybody. I trust you all had a enjoyable 4th of July holiday. Get some sleep, and enjoy family and festivities, some good barbecue perhaps,
Jamie's on her way to see.
and maybe a little trip someplace. So welcome all back. We're back at business at hand. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is 9:50. It is Tuesday, July 9th, 2024, and this is the county board meeting. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Ellen,
Alan present.
Bates, Berman,
Berman's here.
Doherty,
Right here.
Davis, Ford, Gums,
Comes here.
Iqbal,
All present.
Here.
Kenyon,
Here.
Caius, Leonard,
Here.
Lewis,
Here.
Linder,
Linda here, remote.
Molina present.
Roth,
Here.
Sanchez,
Present.
Silva,
Silva is here.
Strathman,
Strathman here.
Surgis,
Present.
Tarver, Williams,
Here.
Tepe, Young. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Very good, thank you. And it looks like Mr. Sanchez got another haircut.
Yes, ma'am.
You got hair when I get a haircut.
We have 2 remote attendance requests from Mr. Doherty and Mr. Linder. Do I have your permission to allow them in? Yes, permission is granted. Welcome, gentlemen. And Mr. Davis, your turn.
We're gonna start a little pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation with all with liberty and justice for all. You like that? I knew it. This next part of the agenda has been a process that's been an inclusive and had many wonderful speakers. To be honest, for me, I'm most comfortable when we come here and we approach the work of the county without leaning too far into our belief process or to party lines for that matter. But I did want to participate. I found what I considered a spiritual leader that had a quotable line that said, "Our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them." Well, that's pretty direct and simple. That's the Dalai Lama that said that one. Okay. I thought, well, let's try to do a little bit more in the spirit of invocation. I don't think that's my realm, but I guess I'd like to try to invoke some responsibility for all of us and to remind us that, instead of approaching it maybe as in a prayerful way with bowed heads and eyes closed and that kind of thing, I guess I'd ask instead that you lift your heads, open your eyes, and more importantly, open your hearts. And let's remember that we're here and that we should strive for practical consideration and constructive action. I think that's the core of good local government. Our duty to this community is to share the examples that we make, the legacies that we leave, and that our conduct, we should remember, is our greatest and our most noble intention. And let it be measured by, hopefully, our most constant success. I think that's all I'd like to ask for. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. Very nice. Well said. All right, as usual, I take pause on reflecting of invocations and words into my heart and into my head. So thank you, Mr. Davis. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of June 11th,
Madam Chair,
2024?
this is Caius. I would ask for unanimous consent for the minutes of June 11th.
Good. Unanimous consent is given. Unanimous consent. Thank you. Before we begin public comment, I just have a brief announcement to make. We're going to be adding, after public comment, we're going to be adding a brief executive session where we'll be asking everybody to leave except of course the board members and related staff. It'll be short, brief, and then we'll go back into the rest of our agenda. We will have another executive session later on in the meeting as well. So just so everyone is aware that there'll be two of them. And that is the request of our Chief of Civil. So with that, let's go on to public comment. We have a few speakers. Those speakers who are speaking on the petitions, you'll be called up later on, so I will not be calling your names right now. When your petition comes up, you feel free to address the board at that time. So the first speaker is Adam Polly here? There we go. Mr. Polly, you will have 3 minutes, I'm sorry, 5 minutes to speak.
Oh, I'm non-agenda. I don't know if that,
Oh, non-agenda, then you are
Non-agenda.
3. No, please, feel free.
I rise today to thank Madam Chair for her written assurances that there will be a Pride resolution in August. Better late than never, I guess, on that. But I'm also here to talk a little bit about what that means. What are we celebrating? What are you voting on? Pride Month and the things that we celebrate up until the 4th of July, that's when I celebrate it till, is a celebration of our freedoms, our rights and our freedoms that derive from our natural law, that come right from our founding documents. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their creator certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what we're celebrating. That's what you will be voting on as it moves through the committee funnel. Celebrate our rights and our freedoms that exist in this country that do not exist in many places throughout our world. I'd like to conclude with a gift for Madam Chair. This is a symbol of my pride. Yes, we have our rainbows and our subsidiary symbols, but this is the symbol that unites us all as Americans, a symbol of hope that has inspired countless people throughout our history. I encourage a yes vote on the resolution, and I encourage you, Madam Chair, to bring this flag back when you vote on this resolution. And I hope that it passes and that we celebrate the rights and freedoms that exist in our country that do not exist around our world, and that they continue to see this symbol as hope.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Please, you can give it, John. John, could you please just take that? Thank you very much. Adam, thank you. It's quite an honor. Ashley. No, that's zoning as well. Susan Webb Kemick.
Handwriting.
And
Is on agenda,
off agenda.
off agenda.
I want to just comment briefly on the proposal regarding the emergency response to the abandonment of undocumented migrants in Kane County, and not in great detail. I have read it, and what the young man said I thought was very important, because the flag, of course, this country is why so many people want to come here, and of course it's a partisan issue. It's been kicked down the can by administrations for decades, and it's not been handled well, I don't think, by any of them. However, I do think it is very short-sighted to say that we do not want any federal or state funds. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. So to say that to actually document that we don't want any funds to assist us should we need them, I think, as I said, is very short-sighted. And we don't know what's going to happen. At this point, we have not had busloads of immigrants dropped on our doorstep, but we don't know what's going to happen down the road. So as I said, I just think this proposal is very short-sighted, and that a lot of discussion needs to go into this before anything is passed. So that was just all I had to say on the immigrant issue. The other is a response to last week's executive meeting. There was a comment made by Brian Anderson that I wanted to address. Yes, Mr. Anderson, there was a call to action on March 4th, 2024, because there was a group of badly behaving individuals coming to the Kane County meetings to disrupt and create chaos. And I will tell you, until I went to that meeting, I'd never been to a Kane County. I didn't know. I'm sorry, Corinne. I didn't know who you were, Madam Chairman. I might have known you by face, but I really didn't understand what happened at these meetings. So I decided to start coming. But I attended that meeting because I am a concerned Kane County citizen, and I wanted to see our county remain a very civil place to live. We love it here. The purpose of the meeting was to calm down the fervor, which was unnecessary and we thought unacceptable. The lack of respect for the board members was pretty outrageous, and not to mention most comments by those who were behaving badly, and that was not everybody, of course, but those comments, a lot of them were manipulated facts. Freedom of speech is, of course, indeed allowed here, but not just one person or one party's freedom of speech. Every speaker who has come here came with their own concerns and perspectives, and not of any one board member. So when your freedoms restrict the freedoms of others, I have a problem with that, and then that sometimes you lose credibility. Thank you.
Brian Anderson. And Brian, you are on or off agenda, 3 minutes.
Madam Chair, off agenda. Good morning, Brian Anderson, Sugar Grove, Illinois. Glad to be here today in front of the full county board. I could speak on ordinance 24-303, which I think you're going to discuss at the end of the meeting. I really came to speak because I'm hoping all of you will go back and review the executive meeting on July 3rd. It was quite an interesting meeting and worthy of your time and attention to dig in and review. I could speak a little bit about what Wallet Hub just came out, especially since there was a Forest Preserve meeting this morning. Illinois is ranked as having the highest tax burden in the nation, 39.83% above the national average. So let that sink in. Here's why my remaining time, and it goes a little bit with what board member Davis said of just about working together as a board for the constituents. I've received 4 or 5 calls and emails from friends that happen to live in Vern Tepe's district.
Excuse me, sir.
Local lies and rumors.
Mr. Anderson,
No,
Mr. Anderson, I would like to let you know that at this board, you are to direct the entire board, not to call out an individual
I'll be
board member.
directing it to the board member that
Please.
resides in that district because it affects me as a
Sir,
citizen.
just use the district number.
So
Just use the district.
what's
Point
his
of order,
district
point of
number?
order, point of order. Where does this say, Madam Chair, where does it say that in our statutes,
It's best.
that point of
the
order,
best
where does
protocol.
it state in our statutes that someone's name cannot be used and can be addressed when the public is speaking? Where does it state that?
This board speaks as one voice. not separate voices.
Right, you'll be
Upon your
talking
vote-
about that today
upon
as a,
your
as a
vote.
group, but
So,
let me
Mr.
continue so I can
Anderson,
get my
just
3
use the-
minutes out of the way.
just
Thank
use
you.
the board.
So anyway, I'm concerned about the email. I've been coming here for 15 months, as most of you know. And I speak candidly, directly, and factually. In his email, a small group of extremists. So let that think in for a minute, folks. I'm called an extremist because I come to a board meeting and want fiscal responsibility. I'm called an extremist because I challenge the board to work together as a body, which I've seen you do, to lower our taxes, to provide the right services for we the people here in Kane County. But to call me an extremist is absolutely absurd. It goes on to say these local lies and rumors have already started, spreading rumors and lies. Let me state on the record for each and every one of you, I only speak the truth. On August 23rd at a board meeting, he did vote to limit speech from the citizens. On November 23rd, he did vote to increase the motor fuel tax. By the way, that was 11-1. You were the only one. So these are not my words. These are the votes from each and every one of you. So there is no speaking lies. When I go to barbecues and people ask me what's going on in Kane County government, I merely pull up the voting record of these people that represent us in Kane County. On May 24th, he flippantly stated, I think we should give the chair up to $160,000. That is on the record. That is in the video. That is on the audio. You can listen to that. So why am I here? Because I think it's important for each and every one of you to speak to your constituents in a manner that is truthful and transparent and not call people extremists. And then to this fine citizen that referenced my name, that particular board meeting was the property tax meeting where there were over 200 people
Sir,
here that
sir, your
day.
time is up.
They were
Mr.
not
Anderson.
affiliated with, thank you
Mr.
very much,
Anderson.
Madam Chair. They were not affiliated with our group, but thank you.
It is the best practice for our community members when they come and speak. We always welcome your voices. But remember, we are speak here as one voice. When this board votes, they may be divisive. They may be, have an interesting conversation amongst themselves. But once that vote is taken, that is one voice that we've agreed to adhere to. It is part of our democracy. It's very fiber of our democracy, whether you're a minority or majority vote. So I would appreciate if all of our community members can address the entire board rather than calling out an individual. Because again, that voice, their vote is their voice. But once that vote is taken, the board's vote is more important. All right, I believe Jack McKay.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out, he wasn't calling him out. He was pointing out that an email was sent and by who it was sent.
Thank you,
Not-
Mr. Doherty. Mr.
not
Doherty,
his
thank you. We
board
have a
agreement.
speaker. We have a speaker here. Thank you.
I'm a speaker here.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, the board, for allowing me to speak briefly this morning. My name is Jack McKay, and I work in the office of State Representative Marty McLaughlin, the current representative of the 52nd District. I'm here today as a civil servant providing information for you to share with your residents. Representative McLaughlin asked that I attend today's meeting to let you know that our local office is open to serve you and your constituents. Our address is 28662 West Northwest Highway in Lake Barrington. The office can assist your constituents with various state of Illinois department issues, such as state unemployment benefit issues, FOID card and CCL card applications and renewals, Secretary of State issues, Department of Insurance Assistant, and much more. We are also going door to door, visiting businesses and homes in our district's communities, providing up-to-date phone numbers and websites so that our residents can access the state services that we are all entitled to. Our office is also holding a number of community events during the coming months. On July 16th and 31st, we will host coffee and conversations meetings in Algonquin and Libertyville to provide a successful wrap up to the spring legislative session. On Saturday, September 7th, we will host our popular prescription drug drop off and shred event at our office. And on Wednesday, September 11th, we will host a mobile DMV event at the Algonquin Township Complex. Representative McLaughlin also asked me to let you know that IDOT has released a revised list of construction priorities, and we have copies available if you have not yet reviewed it. Please bring forward to our office any other issues of concern to your community so that we may address them and prepare any items for the discussion at the veto session, which is usually scheduled for October. Finally, Representative McLaughlin is available to participate in community events or town halls. Just contact our office for scheduling. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I'm leaving you with some of these brochures with information about our office's services, which you can share with your neighbors and constituents. If you or your residents have any questions, please feel free to send them to the representative's office via email, mclaughlin@ilhousegop.org, or call the legislative director, Pam Cools, at 224-634-8300. Thank you all for letting me speak this morning, and I do apologize. I have other meetings to get to, so I will be leaving.
Thank you, Jack. Vicky Ryback?
Hello.
You
Hello?
are on, Vicky, we hear you on agenda. You'll have
Okay,
5 minutes.
okay,
Are you
I
on phone
want to
or on
talk about-
Zoom? Vic, are you on Zoom?
yes,
Can you turn on your camera? Do you have that capacity? We'd like to see you if available.
okay.
Nice background.
We should have remote meetings like in Hawaii.
Do you know where your camera is?
Well, yeah, and it's showing the camera.
There you go. There. We just saw your face.
That was just a picture.
Okay, well, that'll do. That'll do for right now.
I want to discuss a couple of things. One is, please don't stifle our speech. I, heard that, I don't know that it's on the agenda, but that you want to lessen the time for people to speak. And just please don't. If the room is full, there's a reason for it, and we should be allowed our voice. The tax dollars pay for your salaries. They pay for your agendas as well. You work for us, not the other way around. You push through raises for yourselves while we struggle to pay our bills and to keep a roof over our head and food on our tables. If you were in line with what the public wants, then, they wouldn't have to come in again and again and ask for stuff. Like I have asked a couple of times for you to list the amounts on the end of each agenda item for full transparency, so we could see how much you're spending all of the time. It never gets addressed. So, if the room is full, you should allow more time, not less time, for our voices to be heard. And I just, again, with the transparency, I would really like to see that, because you bury the stuff so far deep that, we have to look way far into each agenda to get to what it costs, when you could just list it on every line, which one, how much it's going to be. And then we have clear transparency. So I would like to bring that up again. But thank you for your time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. I'd like to respond to Vicky. I will ask each of our chairs of our committees to take a look at your agenda items as they're going forward and as they are submitted for your for executive committee, and then as well to the board. If that is something that you would consider doing as appropriate, making sure that when it says, let's give an example. authorizing revision to the Kane County financial policies related to travel. Does that have a cost to it? No, but perhaps another one does. So what that cost would be, and just line item that out and include that in the title of your resolution that you're wanting to pass. I think it's pretty
Well,
simple.
I'm talking about right here on this agenda.
That's exactly what we're talking about, Vicky.
Okay,
So if we could do that, that would be much appreciated. We're responding to her concerns and she has brought that up several times. So let's see if we can manage getting that done. Simple enough.
thank you. I appreciate it.
All righty. I think that's it. I think that does conclude. Everybody else who's on to speak will be talking about the zoning petitions. So very good. All right, Mr. Frank. Could you lead us into executive session, please?
SEO Frank, I would ask or seek a request to enter into closed session based on probable imminent or immediate litigation.
Tempe so moves.
Linder
Second. We have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Ellen,
Alan, I.
Bates,
It's yes.
Berman,
yes.
Doherty,
Oh, yes.
Davis,
Travis, yes.
Ford, Gums,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Juby,
Aye.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Silva,
Yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges, not here, Tarver's not here, Tepe,
Tempe, yes.
Williams,
Williams, no.
yeah, and Young.
Yes.
Okay, passes. One
Very
nay.
good. All right, we're now going to close session. We'd ask everybody to leave. We will bring you back in
things with you.
and make sure that everyone has their items with them, please. Phones, purses, briefcases, coats.
All right, everybody online that's joining us in the closed session, please accept the invite to join us. If you are in the room and also joined via Zoom, you must join before we can start the closed session.
But I mean, I'm like, we might as well just do.
I think I see something on the floor back on the right side.
I assume this is on,
I'm still missing one person online, needs to join us in the closed session.
solar. It seems to be totally.
And is there anybody hearing my voice online that feels they should be included but did not get an invite?
It's right next to Forest Reserve. I don't want a 7-Eleven right there.
Because we've got some.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not.
No one's objected. It seems. That's not a surprise.
Yeah. The consent agenda.
Did you get your invitation?
Stop it. Keep changing.
All right, you are in open session.
All right, very good. We're back in open session. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Okay, Ellen,
Alan present.
Bates. Present?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, this is for attendance. Berman. Davis, I'm sorry, Doherty,
Earlier.
Davis,
That was here.
Ford. Gums. Iqbal.
Should be here.
Kenyon. Caius,
Vice President.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Lou, you're here. Lewis,
here.
Linder.
Linder here.
Okay, Molina,
Molina present.
Roth,
Roth here.
Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Silva is here.
Strathman,
Strathman present.
Surges,
Present.
Carver is not. Tepe,
Happy here.
Williams,
Here.
Young.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
We're back in open session. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'd like to get your permission, please, to move our consent agenda to this point in our meeting right now so we can complete that and that we can go on to the rest of our meeting, which is going to be a little bit more detailed. So with your permission, I'd like to begin this. Does anyone have, we're moving on to consent agenda? Would anyone like to remove any item from the consent agenda? Ms. Juby, I see your hand up.
I'd like to remove 24-277.
Anything else? Ms. Juby? Is that it? Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Young?
24-290.
Anything else, sir? Mr. Young? Is that it? Okay. Mr. Tepe?
24-274.
24-2.
74.
774. At this side of the room to my left, anybody here? To my right, anybody? No? Anybody online? No? All right, very good. So may I please have a motion, a second, to approve the items on the consent agenda except for numbers 24-274, 24-277, and 24-290. 77. Thank you. Who motioned?
Berman
Okay,
and Roth seconds.
Thank you.
Okay, ready? I'll be going.
Yes. Okay, Ellen? For the consent agenda, approving? Miss Allen?
Alan, I.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Bates?
Bates, yes.
Wrong time.
All right, Berman?
Berman, yes.
Doherty?
There he is.
Davis?
Yes.
Ford?
Ford, yes.
Gums?
Yes.
Iqbal?
Yes.
Juby?
Should be I.
Kenyon? Caius?
Yes.
Leonard?
Leonard, yes.
Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Linder?
Linder, yes.
Molina?
Molina, yes.
Roth?
Roth, yes.
Sanchez?
Sanchez, yes.
Silva?
Silva, yes.
Strathman?
Strathman, yes.
Surges?
Surges, yes.
Tepe?
Tepe, yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Young? That passes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, since we have attorneys and other petitioners here, once again, I'm going to ask if we may move the zoning petitions up and my comments and the review of our 2006 strategic plan after we get done with zoning. So we can let our professionals speak and other petitioners leave to get on with the rest of their day. So with that, Mr. Ford, your turn.
Good morning, madam. Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Our first petition is 4633.
The contact is Keith Berghoff. Petitioner is Weathered Ways Farm LLC. Location is 1 North 53 Brundage Road, parcel 1101-400-014 and 17 in Blackberry Township. The proposed rezoning for PUD planned unit development to F2 district, agricultural related, sales, service, processing, research, warehouse, and marketing with a special use for a winery. The 2040 plan is resource management. There's been no objectors. Recommendation from the zoning board has approved it with, I believe, 5 stipulations. I make the motion to move this.
William seconds.
District, I believe it's William.
Mr. Wood. Very nice to have a winery in your district. Very nice. Mr. Ford, are there any petitioners to speak on this behalf?
No objectors. I believe there are some speakers here representing Weathered Ways Farms, if they would like to speak.
Representative from Weatherways like to come up? And you will have a total of 15 minutes, but that'll go for rebuttal as well, if there's any rebuttal.
Okay, sounds good. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Ashley Keller. I'm the owner of Weathered Ways Farms. Sorry if I'm nervous up here. This is absolutely my first rodeo here. So I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what I am doing. I know there's been a lot of mystery behind that land and a lot of different things going on. So I wanted to clear it up and let you all know. So as of right now, I purchased that land in 2021 and it was being sold as agricultural land, which I love because that's all me. I'm a beekeeper and I'm an okay farmer, if I guess you could say that. And when I purchased the land, I thought this will be my dream. I'm going to turn this into a farm. I'm going to have an orchard. I'm going to have a vineyard. I'm going to have a small space where families can come and just enjoy the land. And then when I got into the technicals, and this is all the stuff that you know that I do not, I had heard the word PUD going around, like your zone PUD. Great. I think that's special use. That encompasses a lot of things, right? Except for right at the end, just underneath in small print, it says excluding agricultural purposes. And I was like, well, that's kind of ironic. The one thing that I want to do. So basically, that's why I'm here to request a rezone. So for the land, here's kind of what I'm thinking. So you are aware. A lot of people get turned off by the idea of a winery, even though personally it's one of my favorite things. So there will be a small vineyard on the site covering about 2 acres. I will have a small tasting room that will probably have a very small occupancy. That's all details that we've kind of worked out. But the majority of the land is still covered in USDA certified organic alfalfa cover crop. I have about 1 acre of pumpkins in the front, 1 acre of sunflowers. I have 8 beehives, so that's kind of my specialty. I'm in the steps of putting in an orchard and again, putting in that vineyard as well. We have a hoop house that will be just growing specialty items, a lot of peppers, a lot of different vegetables. Right now, we have an ag exempt barn that is being used for storage. And then I know that on my road that I'm on that rustic road over there, we have a lot of event spaces and a lot of things going on there. And so when I say events, I just want to give you an example of one of those events that I hosted. So you get an idea of kind of the scale that I'm looking at. I'm in no way looking to host large events, but last Monday, I hosted the Rising Lights Project and they did a barnyard dance and it was very adorable. So out in the front, they had somebody teach them line dancing. We did s'mores. We did a little hayride going around the property. And that was kind of all that encompassed. So that's kind of the events that I'm looking for. Think Boy Scouts troops, think Girl Scout troops, think family events, just very small scale. So what I'm trying to do, and I chose Kane County because of this. I actually lived in DuPage County and I was a very long member of the DuPage County Farm Bureau, but don't worry, I'm changing to Kane County. But I was looking for a place and I looked all over DuPage County, but as you know, that's kind of hard to find farmland, but I was looking for that perfect spot. And I was looking for a place that kind of combined the new and the old. It combined, the rustic and the modern. And I think there's really no better place than Kane County for that. You have you can go on Randall Road and literally find whatever you need to your heart's content. Or you can go just a few miles off and you can just be like surrounded by gorgeous farmland. And for me, that was just the dream. So I'm very, very happy to be here and thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments on this issue?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
briefly,
Yes,
this is my district, Weathered Ways has been a good member of our community, serves the Mill Creek area quite well, and this will be a nice complement to the offering they already have, so I support this
Thank you.
request.
Thank you. Thank you. It sounds like a perfect use for Kane County and for our farmland. All right, with nothing else, Mr. Ford, are we ready to call the vote?
I believe so.
All
Madam
right,
Chair.
clerk, please call the roll.
Ellen,
Aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Herman, yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
List,
Yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Drums, yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges, Tepe,
Happy, yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Young.
Congratulations. Yes, you ready?
Okay, our next petition is number 4634. And the petitioners RLC Ventures LLC, RPIL Solar 10 LLC. Location is on the west side of Barnes Road, just north of the railroad tracks. Partial 1424 151 006, 1423 400 026, and 1424 300 001. This is in Sugar Grove Township. The proposed is special use request in the F Farming District for a solar facility. The 2040 plan is resource management. The objectors is the city of Aurora. And the zoning board approved this with, I believe, not 11 stipulations. I move this for discussion.
Second, please.
Berman, second.
Thank you, Mr. Furman. All right, Mr. Ford, I believe we go with our petitioners first and then our objectors. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, and this is Mr. Jacoby?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ben Jacob.
Mr. Jacoby, 15 minutes total, including any kind of counter conversation that needs to happen.
Very well, thank you. Good morning again, Ben Jacoby. I'm the attorney for the applicant here this morning. It's not my first time in front of this board. It's a privilege to be back. Thank you for hearing me out. Joined here today by Brian Madigan. He's with the development company, director of permitting there at Renewable Properties, and he will introduce himself next. We're really excited about this project. We were delighted to receive a unanimous recommendation from the ZBA and also from the development committee. The ZBA's findings of fact, which are all positive in favor of the project, are at page 57 of your packet, and I encourage you to review them if you haven't already. The project's a commercial solar use, again, up to 5 megawatts generating capacity, so it's community solar, which I know this board is familiar with. It's approximately 40 acres and is planned on this parcel that sits on Barnes Road. It's west of Barnes Road, so Barnes Road borders the east side. The south side is bordered by the BNSF railroad line, an active freight line. The east side is bordered by a 345 kV transmission line owned by ComEd, so a pretty serious transmission line. And the north side is Aurora, the city of Aurora's border, and there's a church there as well. This is really an excellent spot for solar because of the railroad line and the transmission line. There's deterrent to residential development. And I'll go into that a little bit more in a moment. It also is a land that's susceptible to flooding. And there were photographs entered into evidence at the ZBA hearing of the sort of water filtration problems that this property has that will be solved in large part with the development of the solar project and the use of pollinators and native prairie grass seed mix on that property. The property is zoned resource management. with the county. That's the most flexible district in the county's comprehensive plan. And we are also very pleased to receive a lot of support for the project. Importantly, our closest neighbor, Mr. Salaji, who's lived there for 20 years, he testified at the ZBA hearing that there have been no active proposals for development of the property for residential use. To his knowledge, no offers made on his property for additional residential development. And in his opinion, there were two major barriers to residential development on this property. The first being the water, which he's the one who submitted the photographs after the last rain that the county had. So he brought several photographs and submitted them into evidence at the ZBA. And he also testified that the freight line was a deterrent to residential development. He could hear it no problem. It came by multiple times a day. And his wife wouldn't let him open the windows at night because it was so loud. So he viewed that as a significant deterrent. We had another neighbor, Mr. Hemany, who submitted a letter in support of the project, touting its consistency with the character of the neighboring uses, the benefits it will provide with the pollinators. Those pollinators will also assist the gardens next door in the forest preserve and enhance the pollinator activity in the area. And he found it consistent with the master plan. We had no comments or objections from Montgomery or Sugar Grove, the highway commissioner, or the health department. And we took great care to develop this application and this project consistent with the county's ordinance, the solar ordinance at 25579 and the SUP ordinance 25482, and of course the state statute 512020. So we really thought that this was a great spot for solar. We acknowledge that the city of Aurora filed an objection at the ZBA hearing and spoke in opposition to the project. The city of Aurora's objection was that it had planned this area, generally the larger area, for estate residences, and that was captured in their 2002 vision plan, countryside vision plan. And if you see a map, and I'm not sure we have one, but there is some development. Let's see. So west of the project, that's good. So the red boundary is where the project's at. You can see the ComEd, that's a fee simple land owned by ComEd transmission line to the west that cuts through the middle of the screen. And then to the west of that is Aurora. And then you can see some subdivision that was developed to the north there. That development has stalled for the most part, but there's a lot of development potential south of there. And Aurora has suggested that our parcel is also part of the grander residential development. We discussed this at length with the ZBA. One, we noted that the vision plan is from 2002, and there's been no residential development on our parcel, and to our knowledge, no interest of residential development on our parcel since then. The county's comprehensive plan, in contrast, is from 2012 and finds this as a resource management parcel. There's also plenty of open space, as you can see, for continued residential development over the next several decades, including west of the ComEd transmission line. And as I noted before, our particular parcel is not attractive for residential development due to the proximity to the transmission line, and in particular that railroad and the drainage issues I mentioned a moment ago. The vision plan, and I'm not sure we have a slide on that, but the vision plan shows sort of what Aurora, contemplated here. And what it shows is a road from Barnes Road through essentially the center of this parcel and then under the transmission line and two cul-de-sacs. So limited residential development, but mainly a road from Barnes Road into what would be the greater subdivision area to the west of ComEd. And something that the ZBA observed is that, getting a crossing agreement from ComEd is no easy feat, and they would need that over a fee simple owned by ComEd. It's not an easement, it's a fee simple property owned by ComEd. ComEd really prefers that to go perpendicular, I know from experience, so they would really need to get a road perpendicular to that. There are two poles. ComEd has transmission line poles on the south corner of this property and about 3/4 the way up or so, maybe 80% the way up this property. So there are two transmission poles right there as well that would need to be contended with on an access road basis. Spokesperson from Aurora at the ZBA, conceded that he wasn't aware of any interest in the parcel currently for residential development, and that was taken under consideration by the ZBA. And there's no barrier to additional development here. That west side can still develop, and this parcel can develop residential at the end of the solar life. Of course, solar is a temporary use. The lease will be for for 40 years or so. And when it's done, if that has built out, then they can continue eastward if that's what they would like to do. Community solar, I'll mention very briefly, is brings with it a number of benefits. Taxes, of course, are assessed at $218,000 per megawatt on a fair market value adjusted for inflation, depreciation. This will increase the taxes on this property significantly. I think 640,000 goes to the schools over the life of the party, approximately, assuming the mill rates stay the same. Job creation, approximately 20 or so jobs during construction. The temporary use in the AMA that's entered into preserve the land for future development. The land will use native prairie grass and pollinators, which is consistent with the cities of Aurora's design on the east side in that forest preserve area, and a number of gardens that exist over there. The pollinators will enhance those gardens and farms. Another finding of fact that the ZBA made. And of course, community solar allows residents to participate and get money off their bill, the supply side, if they were to subscribe to the project. So again, we lean very heavily on the ZBA's findings of fact. The ZBA has done a very thorough job. I will say, since the last time I was in front of the ZBA, they now go through each finding of fact one by one, deliberate extensively, and vote on each finding of fact. And they unanimously voted on each finding of fact in support of the project, and then ultimately voted in support of the special use permit itself. So very good product coming out of the ZBA for this project. And we are excited to receive your vote tonight. We hope that we've earned it. I'll turn it over to Brian to briefly introduce himself, and then we'll reserve our time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Brian Madigan. I'm a Director of Permitting at Renewable Properties, here today to represent our interests, and just wanted to take a minute to thank Kane County for collaborating with us, and the two unanimous decisions from both the ZBA and Development Committee. We look forward to bringing this project online and collaborating into the future. So thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, I think that's all for the petition. I think City of Aurora has a representative here. Mr. Saber, if you'd like to speak. Saban.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, County Board members. My name is Ed Sieben. I'm the City of Aurora Planning and Zoning Director. I'm here representing the City of Aurora. I did also speak at the zoning board meeting a few weeks ago. Just wanted to state a few items. This property is contiguous to the City of Aurora and within our planning jurisdiction. As it was mentioned, this is part of the Countryside Vision Plan that was done in 2002. It was a collaboration with multiple governmental entities, including Kane County Development, Kane County Forest Preserve, et cetera. And this area is shown as future estate residential in that plan. Also, the Kane County plan shows this as a resource management area. And the goal, I know, of the Kane County plan is to try to mass your density more in the eastern part of the county along the Fox River corridor, if you will, to provide more open space and preservation of farmland in areas to the west. The City of Aurora taxpayers have also spent money with running a city water line down Barnes Road, which runs through the entire frontage of this property. There's also sanitary sewer at the very southeast corner of this property at Barnes and the railroad. I want to reiterate that the City of Aurora is pro-solar, but the City Council did vote 11-1 to oppose this Kane County special use. We did meet with the petitioners back in January and made them aware of our position on that. The City of Aurora would like additional rooftops here. You can see that we surround this, the dashed area where we surround this. We do have a boundary agreement with Sugar Grove, which is essentially Gordon Road out there. So we are limited in our eventual development area. So we do want rooftops. One thing that has happened, and this has really occurred in the last week since the zoning board meeting, is that we do have an annexation petition in by the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad for their property, which is immediately south of this particular property. And the city of Aurora is in the process of involuntarily annexing this property, which we anticipate to be completed by July 23rd. This is an area that will be less than 60 acres and would fall under that allowance. Notices have gone out yesterday to the landowners. So because of that, City of Aurora would ask that this vote be postponed or tabled today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think there's any other speakers. I don't know if there's any questions of the board.
We have questions of the board now. So we've got two. Mr. Iqbal, I recognize you, sir.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. My question is to the city of Aurora. Have they filed annexation for this property? This looks like a orphan piece of land that they have neglected to annex, and it's ripe for annexation. Have they filed the annexation for this property or not? That's the question.
Mr. Ford, do you have an answer to that?
I don't. I leave it up to the city.
All right.
Thank you. As I stated, we do have an annexation petition for the Burlington Northern Railroad adjacent to this property, which is in the process of moving forward. And we've also filed an involuntary annexation petition for the property in question. So it is in the process, yes.
That was an informal, you said? Just, I didn't quite hear it.
Involuntary annexation.
What's the deadline for this annexation to complete?
Sure.
address it to Mr. Ford.
This would go to, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Please, Mr.
ahead.
Iqbal, address your questions to Mr. Ford.
Yeah, Mr. Ford, sir. I'd like to know the annexation application, involuntary annexation petition that they have filed. How long would it take for them to complete? If it is within the reasonable time, I would suggest the board postpone it. If not, then we should vote on it.
As far as I know, right now, there is not a timeline put on it. My hand's up. Go ahead.
He mentioned July 23rd. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's to get it through the city council, right?
Anticipate the annexation being complete July 23rd. City Council.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all.
Any other questions of the board?
We have two right behind you. Yes, Mr. Rob.
Really, mine is directed to Mr. Leonard, since it's in his district, his feelings on this.
Just for proper protocol.
Yeah.
Well, so
I'm kind of looking at Mr.
yeah.
Ford, but he's not looking at me, so.
So please ask your question.
I'll repeat it then. Since this is in Mr. Leonard's district, I would like his opinion or his.
Okay, Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be voting no on this for a myriad of reasons. I think probably the most obvious one is if a decision is going to be made on July 23rd by the city of Aurora, I would like to give them that additional short period of time to make their decision. So I would like to move that we table this until next month's county board meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so that is a motion and a second to table. I will ask Mr. Frank, who's traveling right now, to postpone or
Postpone, yeah.
Postpone.
motion. to
Postpone.
Madam
postpone.
Chair, could I have my rebuttal time before that motion is acted on?
I'm sorry. we've
Actually,
got-
no.
I'm just trying to focus on,
Yeah.
on the procedure right now. So we are just, there's a motion to postpone until our next
Till
board
the
meeting.
next board meeting.
And that
yes.
date of that board meeting is August, what is that, the 10th? If someone could get that date, so we have a specific date for our next board meeting. August 13th. What, I'm sorry, what was it?
August 13th, Madam Chair.
August 13th. Postponed to August 13th. All right, because a motion to postpone takes precedence, I believe we're ready to call the roll. Is that correct?
Madam
Mr.
Chair, point of order, there is discussion, I
Debatable. It
believe.
is debatable. It is
Yeah.
debatable. Okay,
And
thank you. So is there, do you have
I
a
would-
comment?
Well, I would like to hear what the solar project had to say
Okay.
about this
from this. That's fine. That's okay. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Got 5 minutes left.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So on the motion to postpone, the county's code requires a decision 30 days after the public hearing, which took place on June 11 or June, 11. So the 30 days runs tomorrow. We would respectfully ask for a vote today. The annexation, we have not received notice of an involuntary annexation yet. I heard from gentleman from Aurora that went in the mail yesterday. That of course will be challenged. There's a number of reasons why this property cannot be involuntarily annexed at the moment. That is one, first they have to annex and wholly bound the property. That would include both BNSF railroad property and the ComEd property. ComEd property is not exempt from the contiguity standard under 7.1.1 because it's a fee simple. It's not a right-of-way easement. So Aurora has an issue here in involuntarily annexing the property, one that we will be raising with the city of Aurora and that we'll have to challenge if they follow through with an involuntary annexation. If the involuntary annexation takes place, we would like our special use permit in hand when it does, because when and if we are able to overturn that involuntary annexation, then we'll be ready to go. We won't have to come back to the county board for additional proceedings. We'll have that permit with us. If we are granted a permit today and the city of Aurora involuntarily annexes the parcel and then ultimately wins and it is indeed involuntarily annexed, then that's something we'll have to deal with the city of Aurora. But it won't be any waste. It won't be any additional time on the county's behalf to vote today. And it would be additional time on the county's behalf if we have to come back after the involuntary annexation is overturned, if it is, or if we're able to convince the city of Aurora that they don't have proper grounds for involuntary annexation and they rethink their position, which is something I intend to take up with their outside counsel this week or as soon as possible. So I think that's all very relevant to the motions at play here. I would also note that involuntary annexation takes place once that document's filed with the clerk, doesn't necessarily take place at the vote on the 23rd. So there would still be additional time after that. The legal standard, and this is just for the board's reference, the state's attorney's reference, but the legal standard I'm referencing in terms of the fee simple exception from contiguity was from a 2021 Supreme Court case, Board of Education versus Richland School District 88A versus Crest Hill, 2021 IL 1264444. So we have looked into this. It's something that we're prepared to take to the city and hopefully convince them that they're wrong and that they need to reconsider this. And if not, then it's something that we'll have to fight with them about. So with that, we do ask that a vote take place today. We do hope that we are granted a special use permit. And if we are, then we'll proceed with the village or with the city of Aurora accordingly.
I'd just like to add a couple points on a practical sort of fairness perspective. We have been working to permit this project over the course of the last year and a half or so, and would like to recognize our landowners' wishes here to see this project developed as a solar facility. I think that their property rights and their interest here should be taken into account in light of the fact that there hasn't been other development here over the course of the last 15, 20 years when it was originally envisioned for residential development. So while I understand the perspective of Aurora to wish to annex the property, I think the market dictates at this time that the highest and best use and the best opportunity for our landowner is as a solar facility. So I will close with that, and I appreciate you maybe taking a moment here to consider the fairness aspect and understand our perspective and working to try and provide a project that complies with all the ordinances, standards and regulations of Kane County. So this is a surprise at kind of the last minute. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have still a motion and a second to postpone until August
Madam Chair,
15th. Yes, Mr.
I asked that we put up the findings of facts, are the LaSalle factors on the board as we vote on this? Would that be appropriate?
Is that appropriate or are we I think we're still discussing whether we're going to postpone this.
SEO Frank, the priority motion is the postpone. There's no reason for it not to be up there, but the motion right now is to postpone.
So let's focus our conversation on that. Yes, yes, sir.
Speaking from a member of the development committee, I think that if we had known the city had the
Can you,
intentions.
could you get a little bit closer to your mic?
Yes. Speaking as a member of the development committee, I think if we had known the city of Aurora was intending to annex this property, at least my vote might have been different. So I think we should postpone this, give the city time to see if they actually follow through with it, and then bring it back in August. And if they don't annex it, I'm fully in support of it. But you know, we've always deferred to the municipalities who are adjacent to or could annex the property. I think we should follow that policy.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you. Any other comments? None? All right. Are you ready to take the vote on to postpone?
It's 13th.
13th.
Ellen,
Allen, no.
Bates,
Bates, no.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Doherty,
Right now,
Davis,
Davis, no.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Iqbal,
Well, yes.
Juby,
Juby, no.
Kenyon,
No.
Caius,
Caius, no.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, no.
Linder,
Linder, no.
Molina,
Molina, no.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Silva,
Silva, no.
Strathman. Strathman, no. Surges is gone. Tarver's gone. Tepe,
Tepe, no.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Young.
Yes.
All right, looks like the nays have it.
14-9 or 14-8.
Yep.
Correct. We begin back our discussion, Mr. Ford.
Now we back to what was at hand before that motion. So I don't think there's any other questions or comments by the board. I was,
Regarding the postponement or going forward.
we're doing the postpone. Now we're back to original motion.
Yes.
Mr. Young, I recognize you.
Thank you, David Young. I'd like to know with these solar panels, what is the type of solar panel being used? What is the manufacturer of the solar panel being used, and what model will be used?
We have not selected or procured any equipment, or final equipment at this time, but there would be silicon PV in that they don't contain cadmium, if that's the concern.
Okay, all right, thank you, thank you. Yes, sir.
Kenyon, it seems the site is almost perfect for it. You want to build next to a railroad? Or you want to build next to a power line? We'd be doing Aurora a favor if we gave them their solar farm, and then they wouldn't have to waste their time beating a dead horse through town. I think we should vote yes.
Thank you. Is there anybody else, any other comments? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sanchez here. Yeah, I think it's a good usage of this space right next to a forest reserve. And from what I can tell, my understanding, it doesn't trigger any of the LaSalle factors. So I'll be in favor of this.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Ross?
Now that we're doing the Lisa scoring on it, it was, and you got to break it up into the two parts. The lead part was a 12, so that's pretty bad for soil content. And the other was, I think, 17, so a total of 29. So it's a very poor quality property. So solar would be a good use for that.
Any other comments?
Linder,
Not,
yeah.
I think we are ready to call. Mr. Ford, are you ready to call the roll?
I would say we're ready to call the roll.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's call the roll.
All right. Ellen,
Allen, aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Iqbal,
Well, yes.
Juby,
I.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, no.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Roth,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
this is gone. Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Williams,
Williams, no.
Young.
Yes.
Right, passes 2 nays. Okay, very good. Okay, congratulations. Next one.
All right, our next petition, petition 4635. This is petitioner Howard and Donna Eagle Trust. Location is 48 West 137 Middleton Road. Partial 0428400001 Burlington Township. Proposed rezoning for F District farming to F1 District Rural Residential. 2040 plan is agricultural. There's been no objectors. Recommendation by the zoning board, approved with, I believe, 3 stipulations. I make the motion to move this.
Seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I believe we have Scott Becker is here, and he is here to speak with the petitioner if we have any questions on this. Mr. Becker?
Yes, I am here on their behalf. I'd
Okay.
be
then
happy to
we're
answer any
online.
questions, but have nothing to add.
Okay, very good. Welcome, Mr. Becker.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from Mr. Becker or from Mr. Ford?
All right,
Hearing none.
seeing none. Roll
Let's-
call, can we do the roll?
Let's take the roll.
Ellen, Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Doherty. Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Juby,
I.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Linder.
I'm gonna
Linder,
call
yes.
after I get done with this.
Okay.
Someone's microphone is on.
Mr. Doherty? Could you please turn your mic off?
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Pepe, yes.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Young.
Yes.
Passes.
Passes, very good. All righty,
Thank you.
congratulations. Yeah. Mr. Ford, I think that completes.
Yes, it does.
Wonderful.
Well, it's bigger than I thought it would be.
All right, we are now back to our regular agenda and to my comments. I'll be very quick because I know we want to bring in Mr. Fonstock, who's going to be doing a preview about the upcoming potential vote on this strategic plan. As a reminder, we have sent out a copy of the strategic plan electronically to all of you. And if you've had the chance to review it, there are copies upstairs if you'd like to check them out. They're limited copies because of 2006. So please feel free to read it and then bring it back so we can continue to have that. If you'd like to have a copy made, we'll be able to do that for you as well to help you print it out because it's a long document. I have been going through it and it is interesting because many of the things we're talking about right now that are current right now were addressed during that period of time. We've talked a little bit about consolidating our buildings. That was brought up in great length. They talked about having a county administrator. That was talked about at great length to the people in our audience who are concerned about migrants. That was even brought up, and I found that to be fascinating, as well as incredible growth that was happening here in Kane County with new housing starts in 2006, 2007 period. So what it came out to was what was old is new again. And some of these issues are still being present. One of the things that was also brought up that we have accomplished is that they asked for, with personnel, that we take a look at all of their job rankings and to make sure that each job ranking is measured and equal within each department. And if you remember, we've recently have gotten that done. So that was presented in this strategic plan. So I encourage you all to read it. And again, we'll get you a copy if you'd like to have one. There's a reader's copy, several reader's copies upstairs for your review. I think you'll find it fascinating so that we don't have to constantly repeat the wheel if you so choose to move forward on this, because we've got a baseline for it already. So if there's no other comments with this, I don't have any more. I'd like to bring up Mr. Fonstock. Now, I asked him to do a review of this for the executive committee, and I wanted him to extend it out a little bit more for the full board, so you have a little bit more in-depth knowledge of what that review, what happened in 2006 through 2012, when it was essentially tabled. Mr. Fonstock.
Okay. Good morning. This is Roger Fonstock with the IT and Building Management Department. So some of this is a little bit of a repeat, so we'll go through that, but there's also a couple of slides where we added some of the content about accomplishments that were happening during the period of this strategic plan, then some of the things that were not completed, then also a couple of other byproducts of things that have been done in recent administration. So Blair, if you will, switch to the next slide. So this timeline for the project planning for strategic plan started for the county in August of 2005. It's a long time ago. We're almost 20 years back. There's a few of us that were here at that time going through this. I was a part of one of the subgroups, but they took us through a 7-phase strategic planning methodology. And there's a couple different methodologies that you'll see as the finance department is looking to go out for a solicitation for the RFP. And you'll see different varieties of the strategic planning method, but those are typically the steps, and I'll get to that in a minute. Ultimately, they met for a course of about a year with these different planning groups, and there were departments, elected officials, public, and those groups came up with a variety of different recommendations that were adopted in a plan in 2006. So Blair, next slide. This was the organization of the participation. It had the citizens at the top and the county board and elected officials after that. And then it fell into these planning groups and strategic planning steering committee. And then on the right-hand side of that organizational chart, you'll see the different working groups. There was a working group for operations and organizational structure, which Madam Chair mentioned about the organization of the county departments. And that's specific to county departments. We're not talking about organization of elected offices. Those are handled by statute. Sub-working group 2 was capital and facilities. Then we had information, communications, and cooperation types of events. Resources that are available. That was everything from people to buildings to money, the types of things that you need in order to functionally get some of these objectives done. Staffing and personnel was a huge topic. That's group 5. And then we also moved into growth and development, obviously transportation, the development department. And then we had some other human services and things that were going on, but those were the main subgroups. And on the left, you have kind of the people that were organized around those subgroups. I think it's important to note that we did have a consultant. It was Crow Chiswick. Some people have asked about the costs associated with a plan like this. I will tell you that the mileage varies depending on what you ask them to do. I can tell you that this at the time was a new startup plan, lots of interviews and lots of time spent trying to understand departments. This actually originated the mandate study that was done and some other studies that came out as a result of this. Crow Chiswick was hired in 2005. The resolution I found shows $248,000 as the initial process. Now that was starting from scratch, nothing. We didn't have really a good basis or a plan or even a history of the plan. I can tell you that I've looked at Lake County, DuPage County, and I also went down to Champaign County and looked. You'll see the prices for their planning process range from $80,000 to about $120,000. They take about a year. That's been the range that I've seen. I think the 80 is closer to somebody revisiting and redoing a plan versus the 120 is more, we're starting over and we don't have as much content. So I don't think that those prices are out of range, but a few of you have asked, what does this cost? And those are public documents from other counties that are doing a similar process. So Blair, if you, next slide. They did do 49 interviews. So consultants working with departments, offices, doing 49 different interviews, extracting what the county needs are, the concerns. They did a strength, weakness, opportunity, and challenges. They actually had a discussion about whether to call it challenges or threats, because a lot of times they call it a SWOT analysis. That was an interesting discussion, but we went with challenges that are facing the county instead of threats. The working group formation, we had the 6 work groups, and then it kind of concluded with a retreat where they did prioritization of all the different issues and all the different opportunities and the things that they wanted to try to accomplish. So Blair, the next slide. Again, these are the key working groups. I think that we might have some different working groups this time as we go through. Things have changed a little bit. Categorically, they cover a lot of territory. When you talk about growth and development, I think that includes things like energy and environment, resources, people, money, dollars, buildings. There might be other resources at play. Capital and facilities, we've been working on those plans for the past 2 or 3 years, a lot more mature maybe than they were in the past. And then the organizational structure, we'll get to that too, where we've done a lot of things in the last few years with human resources and finance in the departments to help with the organizational structure and operations. Next slide, Blair. So this is the 7-phase process that they did. And again, I'm not going to read the steps to you, but it's a typical process from initiation to the final plan. One of the big discussions about this was execution. So once you have the plan, you don't want it to become shelfware, and it was important to try to execute. And I think a lot of the execution took place at a departmental level or at an office level. There was, obviously a need to continue to plan. And I think that that's maybe one of the things that we're looking at is where did the plan go after its initiation in first 6 or 8 years? And then, where are we at now? So going back, what was accomplished, what was left on the table, and then what other things happened in the process? I went through the accomplishments and tried to identify some of these things. I can say that some of them are constrained by financial resources. You'll see some things about consolidating facilities and buildings, those types of things. I mean, those are obviously big financial investments and will cause financial constraints. You have to pay to operate the building, maintain it, plus acquisition costs. There was a section where we identified risks and we did public review and public input. All of that was taken into consideration, and I think the plan was generally well received. I don't think we had much of a dissent from the plan. It was well documented, well received, and then we went into implementation. A lot of things did get implemented, and I'll share with you a few of them that I don't think happened. Blair, if you want. So again, this was the culmination of all that work on June 2nd, 2006. They all met. We actually met at the Riverside Banquet Hall down the street, and they had everybody show up, and that was where they did whiteboard and paper exercises and prioritize everything. We spent several hours going through all the different lists and trying to get the priorities right. And in the plan, what you'll see is each area of the plan, the different areas that I spoke about, they each have issues identified and then strategies for dealing with that issue. So I'd go straight to that part if you want to get to the meat of what was being asked. And it describes them as an issue. And then how would you deal with it? So those are all the issues and how to deal with it. Blair, if you go to the next slide. Again, they adopted in 2006. There were some action plans, some resource requirement issues, money. Obviously, if you're going to look at consolidating or centralizing buildings, restructuring things like positions and payroll and jobs, that's expensive. Most of our money is spent on people. It's not spent on capital or equipment. It's people, probably 70+%. And then, we looked at, some of the innovative ways that we could communicate or use technology to improve what the county does. I think at the time, we were one of the only counties that received a Sunshine Award for how we handled information and content on our website. So that was a good accomplishment. If you go to the next slide, Blair. These were some of the accomplishments. Some of them already been mentioned. I added a few. One of the things that came out of all of that, there was the creation of the legislative committee. And I thought that was something that we missed in the last time we talked about this exec. They did do the state mandate matrix. And I didn't talk about that last time. There's also a mention, which is one of the things that didn't happen, is the services. They asked about doing a services matrix. So not just what's mandated, but what are we actually providing as services? I know that topics come up from time to time when we talk about budget. What services do you provide? If you don't get the money, what does that mean? So those are the types of things that would come from a service matrix. We talked about the investments and some of the refinance in the financial part, where we're refinancing bonds and how the county borrows money and pays the money back. Capital investments, we went and looked at a 5-year capital plan. We built the Adult Justice Center, the jail, and the sheriff's office. Sometime later, there was a qualification gun range added to it. We did improvements and upgraded the Child Advocacy Center. There was, and actually that's on our list right now for more improvements. They built the animal control facility out off of Peck and Kesslinger. Completed the Stearns Road Bridge with a lot of assistance from our partners at state and federal money. And then similar to Longmeadow, we're getting the same kind of cooperation. And then we also had the renovation of the branch court and conference facility, which is 540 Randall Road. It's the building where the circuit clerk is and the branch court traffic court is. They remodeled that into a conference and meeting center, a courtroom. There's state's attorney, public defender office in there. And then we also have the branch court or the circuit clerk's office. And then we used part of the building for a warehouse, but that was all done during that time period. They did the farmland protection, farmland preservation, over 5,000 acres of farmland. We also did a project to implement fiber optic cabling with the transportation department. I think today we have almost 70 miles of fiber optic cable along county right-of-ways, and we use that for infrastructure for government, education, cities. We partner with people. We just had legislation recently to allow us to expand and continue to lease or work with carriers and providers to use that fiber. Public safety initiatives. There was a call to do a Kane regional dispatch and upgrade of the radio system, and that happened. And one of the things that was a byproduct of that, we actually organized the Kane users group and the subscribers group, and the subscribers became partners in our 911 center rather than just being users of the system. They actually became vested partners, and they actually pay subscriber fees associated with it. Before that time, Kane was basically a service under the sheriff, and the small communities that were subscribers were essentially getting a lot of those services for free and didn't have as much at stake in the game. So this plan called for them to be partners in it and for us to create a Kane board and have a subscriber agreement with them. I mentioned before, Mr. Shepro was actually there when we wrote the agreement. So few of us are still around. The Riverboat Grant Program, we put over $58 million back into the community. And I always get the 3 E's wrong, so I'm just going to stick to the 3 E's: education, environment, and economic development. Yeah. And then lastly, probably the jewel is the 2040 plan and the quality of Kane. I looked it up as May 2012 was when the 2040 plan was initiated. And it's been, I think, in iterations, and there's different aspects of it that get touched upon or upgraded over time. But those are some of the key accomplishments, things that came out of the 2006 plan. If you go to the next slide, Blair. Some of the things that weren't addressed, and Madam Chair, you hit almost every one of the ones that I was going to talk about, and it wasn't pre-shared, so you did a good job. The county administrator, they actually described it as a chief of staff, chief of operations for the management of departments. They discussed the continuation of the strategic planning process on a 5-year interval, and we haven't been doing the 5-year interval as far as I know. Consensus on internal control. There's a section where it talks about having a consensus memorandum where the elected officials and the county board have a memorandum of understanding or consensus about what is internal control and what is expected through budget, finance, and things like that, just to have terms. That was discussed. We still discuss that today. Service inventory matrix. I think that's important. What do the departments do with the money? What are the different services? And how is the money spent? Most of the money is spent either on staff, contractual services, or commodities. And then there's a centralized capital budget, but that would be, what services do you provide for the money? Whoops. How are those dollars allocated per program or per service? And then lastly, there was a call for centralization of facilities and the sale of facilities. At the time, it was, again, going back to facilities master planning, they had purchased and acquired all the property at the Judicial Center, Route 38 Beck Road. And the intention at that time was that they wanted centralization of facilities and services. I know that in our recent plan, that's taken a little bit of a twist. We have a lot of opportunities. And I think it's a good thing. We're not constrained. We have land. We have places where we could build or do things. And we're trying to shift the current master plan to reflect the fact that we have these sites available to us. And we don't have to necessarily be deterministic because we don't have just one option. We have probably 3 to 5 options, depending on how you look at it. So Blair, if you go to the next slide. Some recent things. And Madam Chair, you mentioned some of these too. Review and standardization of job descriptions. I think that's been a couple-year effort from Executive Director Labrillo and her office, going through job descriptions with everybody, trying to make sure that they're standardized, trying to do job classification, compensation scales, compensation and internal equity. That's been underway and in the process and working, bumps and bruises along the way, but I believe they're getting ready to look at external equity as well. But that's been very healthy, I think, for the departments as much as it's been painful. It's good. We're learning. The facility master plan, we're probably 80-90% there. We have some changes to how we're doing site planning as opposed to some of the technical recommendations, but that's going to be coming back through and getting approved. We did develop last year a 5-year capital plan for the board. We have that. It's going to be coming through finance. So you'll be seeing that. You do have the economic development initiative that got started recently. Things like the Fabulous Fox and the efforts that have been going in to market us to people that are prospective businesses. Energy and environment, we've done a solar farm. We've done a lot of electronic vehicle work. The recycling continues. It's always an outreach. And then stormwater management. We're actually doing a big project just to fix the creek on our own property right next door, which is, I think, going to be a huge improvement. If you haven't walked back there, it got rough over the years. So I know that Jody Wolnick and her office, they're working with us on that. Long Meadow Parkway is about done. I think they're going to eventually we'll have a grand opening in September. Yeah. But regional transportation planning ongoing. That's a big event. And then community health assessment and plan was done. And Michael Isaacson, and I believe before that, has helped put that together, but it was a 4-year plan that they've been working on. They're actually revisiting that now. And that's one of those plans that's in a cycle of iterative process. They're redoing it every 3 or 4 years. So I think that's been moving along well. But those are some of the recent accomplishments. And then Blair, the last one. So in the plan, it mentions refugees and immigrants.
And I honestly, we have not talked to each other.
Actually, I added this morning because I was pondering that. And it talks about conduct an assessment, impact of refugees and immigrants, including literacy, healthcare, job training, and housing. Sounds very familiar. And this is almost 20 years ago. And the picture of that is a picture from Hurricane Katrina. And that's when this got started. We were in 2005. And Hurricane Katrina actually reached this far. We had people from Houston in the Astrodome or the Dome. They were actually trying to relocate them here to Elgin Mental Health Center that was repurposed to provide some temporary housing. And the county and the state worked together to try and actually provide that. We had people come from Houston all the way up here and relocate. At that time, I think the planning process for handling something like that, we just had never done anything like that. So we were just trying to do everything we could to help, but it actually manifested in the plan that we need to have. And one of the topics I will tell you, and I don't know if we have anybody from OEM that could speak to it, but one of the things that happened as a result of this was we did a tabletop exercise that involved what happens if Chicago has an incident and they all come out here. Because we are the three western interstates that run out of Chicago, and we have three major rails that run out of Chicago. They all pass through here. So we did a tabletop exercise after that to see how would that affect us if Chicago had to, basically evacuate or leave. And it was interesting because it's just a telling thing that you just don't have enough room, facilities, resources, people once it starts piling up. So it was interesting. Anyway, those are some of the things that came out of it. Blair, next slide. I think we're done, right? Okay. So if you have any questions, I know it was on the consent agenda, so I believe you already approved to go out for the RFP and consent agenda, but
We have one comment, if I may.
okay.
Ken Shepro, say.
Microphone.
Microphone. Move it, please.
I think that, thank you for the mention, Roger, but I'm
Yeah.
going to return the favor. The state of the communications process for 911 could only be described as a nightmare of incompatible systems, too many agencies. And Roger really was the driving force with personalities and differing goals and how was the money being split up. And I could not underestimate or overestimate
Yeah.
the effort and the leadership that Roger brought to the system as it is now compared to what it was is night and day. And I see Mr. Davis nodding his head. Yeah, and it really was as a result of a informal agreement that I remember we discovered had never been made into a formal agreement. The whole system, you had agencies that couldn't talk to each other if they were all at the same scene because their equipment didn't mesh. I would suspect Mrs. Allen would remember as well. And so I just,
thank you.
That was a really key, I think, aspect of the plan that kind of went under the radar because initially it was very controversial with a lot of our municipal partners. So
thank you.
That's just my 2 cents worth.
Thank you. Those are good, great comments. Obviously, we have a couple of comments or questions, Mr. Iqbal.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I thank you for this presentation. My question is to the last slide, which says determine the level of service for immigrants and refugees.
Sure.
Number one, what was the background to it, if anybody remembers that? And was there any determination made to the level of service that county has to provide? And number three, this is immigrants and refugees are not undocumented people. Was there any consideration given to undocumented?
That I have no idea.
To the extent that I could speak to that, it was mainly dealing with people migrating into our area or Illinois. And it didn't talk about undocumented, illegal, or other forms of migration, things that are maybe current topics. But it was more focused on if you have a migration of lots of people because of a natural disaster, an emergency, or otherwise, having people I think that's the term of immigrant or migrant that they were thinking of. And I don't recall that other than directing OEM and the department, like DHS, to do tabletop exercise and kind of run through scenarios and do more preparedness. Those were the types of things that they did. And again, I would go back to all the different issues. When you read through that and you see the issues, many of them were handled and executed at a department level. They weren't things that maybe the board as a committee or subcommittee were working through. They were assigned to department heads. And I think one of the things in the organizational structure where you talk about an administrator or chief of staff, at the time you had Chairman Karen McConaughey. She was the chairman and she organized and worked with the board. They created 5 executive directors and tried to consolidate a lot of the departments underneath kind of a management structure. And instead of going through with an administrator, which seemed maybe a little bit of conflicted or complicated. And then some of that was broken apart with more direct reports through people retiring, resigning, turnover. One of the biggest turnovers was Mr. Phil Buss. When he left, he was one of the executive directors that had huge responsibility over transportation, development, and, big departments. When that was undone, it was a direct report to the chairman and the committees. So some of those things were have changed over time. But the execution of things like this were specific to departments.
It seems that the intention of this refugee and immigrants then was for climate. This was a climate disaster.
Right.
So perhaps, and then we've got a long agenda
Yeah.
still ahead of us. So, yes, Mr.
Shepro again. My recollection is that it actually arose because with the Katrina hurricane, there were a lot of first responders from Kane County and across the country that were actually going down to help with that. And I think the question said, and if you may remember, I think New Orleans lost, at least temporarily, almost more than half its population going to Texas and elsewhere. And I don't think it got much beyond the idea that, well, what if they come here? How are we prepared to respond? And they really didn't, because they were mostly going to other, nearby communities. So I think that's as far as it got. I don't
Yeah.
believe that there were any specific plans made other than to say, if they come here, we better find out,
Yeah.
if we're getting assistance.
They did do the Elgin Mental Health Center. We've retrofitted that and had it, and we did get people coming from Houston all the way up here to occupy the Elgin Mental Health Building for a few months, actually. It wasn't a lot. It was maybe 10 or 20 people that managed to get all the way up here.
Again, these were residents of New Orleans or surrounding communities
Yep.
and not, out of country people.
Thank you.
Very good, very good. I do remember having the animals come to King County. That I do remember from the storm. The lost animals, they came up here and they found new homes, or people identified and never, the original owners were able to get them back. So interesting. I think it'll be an interesting approach if you so prove going forward on this again. I believe it's necessary and needed. It's been a long time. It'll give us an opportunity to step forward with a planned concept, a planned idea. This board will lead the pathway. Pending the election, the next board can take up charge as well and put their own stamp on it. And it will continue to morph as new board members come in, new concepts, new needs for the county come forward. But it'll give a baseline from which to work for. So I think it's, my opinion, I think it's of great value, but then of course that is your decision to make. All right, I think that's it with my comments, and I'd like to bring up Ms. Walnick now. She's been patiently waiting.
Thank you. Jody Walnick, Director of Environmental Water Resources. Under appointments today, I have 2 appointments for the Lake Marion River Conservancy District. The first one is a new appointment for a vacant position, Diana Jarrell. We're excited to include her as part of the district. She has a great background. Her appointment would expire in July of 2030. And the second appointment is a reappointment of Erica Lowe. Her appointment would expire in July of 2029, and I would ask for approval of these 2 appointments to the Lake Marion Conservancy District.
Bias would move.
Thank you. Second. Do I have a consensus?
No, you have to, you do a vote.
Oh, we do a voice vote. Or, okay. Yes, what,
Yeah.
okay. So please, with no other comments, please call the roll.
Ellen,
Aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Juby,
Zuby, I.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Leonard, Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Hang on one second. Tepe,
Happy, yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please, Ms. Walnut, please extend our appreciation for their volunteering for this. All right, we're on to committee updates. Are there any committee updates from any of our chairs? Yes, yes, ma'am.
So, we were going to, do a brief PowerPoint, but we're going to leave it till Friday, Jobs Committee. But I just wanted to briefly mention that last month, Commissioner Bates, Commissioner Strath, and myself were able to attend a convention in Chicago, the Illinois, Economic Development, Group, and it was just 2 days of amazing things about all the opportunities that are going on in Illinois. And we will present it on Friday at the Jobs Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. You've told me it was wonderful, very informative. Anybody else? Okay, very good.
We already did consent.
So back to the three removed.
They can tag with personal expense vouchers.
Let me get my.
So we already did consent. Right? So we can-
All right, we're now to the off consent items. A motion and a second to approve, positively approve and discuss item number 24-2-74.
Sanchez moves.
Mr. Sanchez, thank you, Mr. Caius. Mr. Tepe.
My apologies, Madam Chair. The concern I had has been taken care of, so I no longer have any objection about this.
All right, we're ready to, any other comments on this since it was pulled? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Ellen.
Aye.
Bates. Berman.
Berman, yes.
Doherty.
Sorry, yes.
Gavist.
That was yes.
Ford.
Ford, yes.
Gums.
Gums, yes.
Iqbal.
Well, yes.
Aye.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Caius. Yes. Leonard. Lewis.
Lewis, yes.
Linder.
Linder, yes.
Molina.
Molina, yes.
Roth.
Roth, yes.
Sanchez.
Sanchez, yes.
Silva.
Silva, yes.
Thank you. Strathman.
Strathman, yes.
Pepe.
Happy, yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Passes. All righty, very good. May I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve item number 24-277?
Sanchez moves.
Okay, Mr. Sanchez,
Caius, second.
thank you. Ms. Juby.
So in finance, this was amended to remove language that had been included that the financial policies related to travel could be presented to the finance department. I had asked that we make it only the finance department, and it ended up being stricken to just the county board. So I had it pulled so I can vote no.
I'm sorry.
I said I had it pulled so I may vote no.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Iqbal.
Yeah, regarding this language, it doesn't add anything to the control or to the have a better policy. It's just as ambiguous as it was before.
Yes.
So I would say no.
No, just so you know, we will be discussing a review of policy shortly at the Finance Committee meeting. That document, the draft document, is being put together by two of our board members, Mr. Linder and Ms. Molina, and they will be presenting that to Finance Committee for Finance Committee's discussion and review. Your policy, then I would like the board members to weigh in on it. So, I look forward to seeing what they have so we can include it in the Finance Committee's discussion. This piece comes directly from the auditor, I believe, Ms. Wegman, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. It's to address a gap in the process.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Ellen.
Ellen, aye.
Bates.
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Doherty,
Or no,
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, no.
Comes no.
Iqbal,
One, no.
Juby,
Rubino,
Kenyon,
No.
Caius,
Yes.
Leonard, Chris,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, no.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Roth,
Roth, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
sorry, Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Williams,
No.
Young.
No.
What is this?
That looks like it failed.
Failed by one.
7,
11 no's.
11 no's.
All righty. So this goes back then to the drawing board.
Which I think you said is where it's going any.
Um, and different approach. This is coming from the auditor's office.
Okay.
The other one is coming through the board. Okay, two different issues.
So is the vote 11 to 11?
No, the vote is
Hang on,
10.
hang on. We're gonna double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, it is 11-11. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for
What
that.
did your vote?
I'd like to pass, please, so it's a yes. I
So
think
it'll be 12-11. All right.
this is honor the request of our auditor. All right, may I have a motion and a second to discuss possibly pass item number 24-290? Molina will move. Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Young.
I pulled this off because I will be supporting this and it is basically to approve the replacement vehicle for Kane County Sheriff's Office. It's an SUV. Last Kane County Board meeting, we passed a climate action plan. And in that climate action plan, TL6, page 274, says that the plan was to achieve 100% conversion of all gasoline vehicles within local government and public fleets to EV by 2040 and all diesel vehicles by 2050. So I just wanted to vote for the gasoline powered engine, and I wanted the people that voted for the climate action plan to vote no. Thank you.
All right, are there any other comments? You made us all smile. Are there any other comments? Yes.
As discussed in our Kane County Forest Preserve meeting today, some of these specialty vehicles are not available in electric yet. So we don't want our sheriffs to go without a vehicle. So I will be voting yes.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none about debatable electric engines or petroleum engines. Clerk, please call the roll.
Ellen,
Aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Doherty,
or yes.
Davis, Ford,
Yes.
Comes,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Juby,
well played, Mr. Young. Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Lewis, Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
That passes.
All right, we're now on to the next three items, which have to do with personal expense vouchers. I will turn this over to our Vice Chair, Mr. Tepe. You can stay where you are, please. And he will lead the vote through these next three.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 24-300, approving county board personal expense voucher in the amount of $24.92. May I have a motion and second to discuss this? Mr. Kenyon moves.
Caius, second.
Sorry, who seconded?
Berman or Caius.
Mr. Berman seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ellen? Bates?
Bates, yes.
Berman?
Berman, yes.
Doherty?
There it is.
Davis?
Davis, yes.
Ford?
Ford, yes.
Gums?
Gums, yes.
Iqbal? Juby?
Should I?
Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Linder?
Linder, yes.
Molina? Roth?
Roth, yes.
Sanchez?
Sanchez, yes.
Silva?
Silva, yes.
Strathman? Yes. Surges? I'm sorry, he's gone. Pepe?
Tepe, yes.
Williams?
Abstain.
And Young.
No.
Okay, still passes.
Okay. Resolution 24-301, approving a county board personal expense voucher in the amount of $36.58. May I have a motion and a second to discuss?
Bates moves.
Who was it?
Alan moves,
Berman,
Seconds.
second.
Strathman second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ellen? Bates?
Bates, yes.
Berman?
Yes.
Doherty?
There it is.
Davis?
Davis, yes.
Ford?
Ford, yes.
Gums?
Gums, yes.
Iqbal? Juby?
Should I?
Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Leonard?
Leonard, yes.
Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Linder?
Linder, yes.
Molina?
Molina, yes.
Roth?
Roth, yes.
Sanchez?
Sanchez, yes.
Silva?
Silva, yes.
Strathman?
Strathman, yes.
Tepe?
Tepe, yes.
Williams?
Abstain.
And Young.
Yes.
Okay.
It passes.
Resolution 24-302, approving a county board personal expense voucher in the amount of $79.61. May I have a motion and a second to discuss?
Kenyon would move it.
Moved by Kenyon,
Berman, second.
seconded by Berman. Any discussion? Mr. Young.
David Young. The travel to Chicago, when you look at this, it states it's Habitat for Humanity and it discusses the Four Season Hotel in Chicago. The packet itself, well, in our packet, it mentions the Adler family from Will County and it mentions the Will County Habitat for Humanity. So to me, this is not official Kane County business. And so I will be voting no against this.
Any other discussion? Ms. Juby?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Okay, go ahead.
So at the last finance meeting, I also questioned this voucher reimbursement. We actually do have a very detailed policy about reimbursements for travel, but it leaves the interpretation of whether it's Kane County business up to the board members to decide. So when I look at these, I look at, as Mr. Young said, is this something that's benefiting our county and therefore our taxpayers? Or is this expenditure above and beyond what is expected in the normal course of our duties as elected officials? So I have 8 site visits that are either in front of the development committee, in front of us now, or coming to the zoning board, all things that I need to look at because I'm going to be voting on them. They all are very, very important, but I am not going to invoice the $180 that the IRS says I can have because this is part of me doing my job. This is not above and beyond what I am doing. And I think that sometimes when we get these, if it doesn't have a direct relationship to moving the county forward, and we can't justify it to the taxpayers, and it's not above and beyond what we're expected to do, I'm not going to Springfield to legislate, which I also wouldn't voucher, but I'm not doing that. But I'm doing something, I'm visiting things that are required of me to do my job. I'm already being compensated for that. So I will be voting no for this. And I will also be bringing it up at the finance when we look at this policy again.
Okay, any other discussion? Sally?
Alan here. Most of us, when we're moving around doing our responsibilities, they are largely within our district. So it's pretty easy to hit your neighborhood groups and your requests to come to meetings and explain what the county does and so on. And it's a reasonably limited territory. But if I were invited to represent the county for something that was farther away, and in my opinion, it was a place where I could do bridge building. But I'd like to be reimbursed for the 100 miles that I have to drive. Then that's the circumstance under which I would ask for that reimbursement. And I think this is an issue. I mean, I believe Cliff and a committee are working on how to make this not emotional and not subjective. But I think that right now, what we need to do is just make our best arguments and then vote. So I just made my best argument.
Thank you. Mr. Berman?
Yes, Berman. No, I think we're all looking for the best facts we can find on every decision we make. And I can see we do a lot of travel in our own districts at our own expense. But I think if we go beyond that on a fact-finding mission, and that's what we're doing. We're attending these meetings and different things, that we should be reimbursed for that. And that's part of the idea of having that reimbursement, is to get you to go to those outside things and develop more of an expertise in what you're making a vote on. So I would be in favor of this.
Thank you. My apologies, Mr. Doherty. I've been informed that your hand is up. You'd like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, were all three of these reimbursements for the same person?
Yes, they're all for the chair.
You can read.
I can read, but I don't see the person's name.
Oh, yeah, there is.
And
Page 442.
so why did we waste all this time voting on three different things when they could have been just combined into one?
Only time.
No.
You will not get an argument from me.
Three different events, Gary.
Different event.
Okay, Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, with respect to the expenses here, I think they're minimal. I really don't agree with it. In 10 years, I've never submitted an expense voucher. And I've gone to meetings outside of my district many a times. So, you know, I think sometimes, as Ms. Juby said, we do things because we're county board members or county board chair, whatever you may be. And sometimes, you know, maybe we can foot our own nickel. I'm just wondering, with respect to expenses for the county board and the chair, is there any limitation on that? And do we have any idea what we're spending every year on these expense reimbursements? And what are they?
I cannot.
No,
How to answer that, so.
Chair knows, so speaking about
Madam
that.
Chair, did you want to address that, or?
well, she's already recused herself from this.
Yes,
conversation,
yes, she's
so I
not
think
in the
she's
meeting.
out of the discussion, but if I-
Perhaps you might want to handle that offline.
to Mr. Leonard's question, I think there has been a.
Mr.
budget-
Davis.
Thank you. Davis, sir. There has been a budget item, you know, line item for this kind of expense. It has changed over the years. It's been higher than it is now. It's been lowered. It's part of the upcoming discussion, what should be budgeted, so that part of this process could be a little more streamlined. And I don't recall ever turning in a voucher either, but I believe that Habitat for Humanity operates throughout Kane County as well. And the idea of sending a representative of the board as an ambassador, to me, is not far-fetched. Like you, again, I don't think I've ever turned one in, but it doesn't mean that it's not appropriate to this. So I think we're maybe making a mountain out of a molehill here.
Mr. Sanchez.
Can't put a value on it. It's relationship building. You go and meet people, they understand you, and they say, I saw you there. And when you ask them for something, they know who you are. It's just that simple in my world, but I've not put one in either, but
I don't have any relationships like that.
Mr. Sanchez.
There's know you everywhere.
The other Mr. Sanchez. I'm comfortable with voting in favor of this today, but I do think there is an obvious conversation that we're kind of having right now. There is some clarity that I think we need in our code regarding reimbursements. Something that just hasn't come up much, but lately we have been getting a lot of these. So I do think it warrants a little more scrutiny and a little more conversation, not in this meeting, but in a more appropriate committee to get that conversation going.
Thank you. Mr. Iqbal.
Mr. Chairman, I would be voting no, based on the county code. County Code 2-72 says that it should be county business. And attending a Habitat Hero Award dinner in Chicago is not county business, number one. Number two, it should be least expensive mode of transportation, which is a metro. And here we have a toll and parking and so forth. So that's also fails. So based on that, I would be voting no.
Okay, Ms. Bates?
I think with the comments that have been given so far, that as board members, we are not expected to go outside of our districts very often. I think that the chairperson of the county is expected to be an ambassador for us and probably has a lot more meetings than I do and a lot more farther away than mine would be. Mine are usually, a few blocks. So I will vote yes on this. I think it's reasonable.
Thank you. I'm going to comment on this. In the past, what I've said, and I will continue to say it, is that I don't think it's my particular position to question my fellow board members and my fellow elected representatives as to whether or not an expense is something that they should personally bear or something that we should bear. And I will continue to act on that personally. So may we have a roll call, please?
Ellen. Bates,
Yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Doherty,
No.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Board, yes.
Yes.
Iqbal,
No.
Juby,
No.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Leonard, Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Roth,
No.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Silva,
Silva, no.
Strathman,
Yes.
Tepe,
Happy yes.
Williams,
Williams, no.
and Young.
No.
8 no's, it passes. Very good.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I turn the gavel over to you.
Oh, thank you very much. And just, I'd like to take just a moment to speak about this. Thank you all for allowing this to happen. It's very challenging when I'm asked a question and I can't speak. This was an ambassador for the event. They did a film. I was in the film. I will continue to be in film number 2. I was there because there was a woman who I explained to you at a previous time, a family who had a house built specifically for her and her family in Kane County. Her single parent. She has a child who has a developmental disability with 2 other children. She was rewarded with recognition at this, and they asked me to be the ambassador and representative of the Kane County Board so that she could receive her award and the home. The home is in northern Kane County, and this is the reason I was there. They've asked me to continue this conversation because I know that this board has an interest in supportive housing and affordable housing here in Kane County for our developing workforce. I was representing Kane County If it had been as an opportunity to go to an event in, let's say, for Mutual Ground that was in DuPage County having their gala, I would certainly not reach out to the board for reimbursement for that. But this was intentional and it was filmed upstairs in the executive suite upstairs. So that's why the reimbursement occurred. So thank you again for that. We are now, I believe, when there's a clarification that needs to be taken up. Mr. Sanchez came up to me during your vote. I couldn't quite listen to what he needed to say. Is it something we need to address now or should we wait?
Once we're open for discussion.
Oh, okay, all right. So I believe right now we are going back into executive session. Is that correct? Oh, my apologies. There we go. There we go. Okay. The rules of order, very important. All right. May I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve ordinance number 24-303?
Sanchez seconds.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, in discussion with the State's Attorney Civil Division, there's just some minor kind of housekeeping amendments that I'm requesting, I'm motioning to make. Should I just read that now before asking for a second?
I believe that would be
Yeah,
appropriate.
okay. So essentially, the title discusses changes to 2-47 A and B, but there is also a change that has been discussed previously regarding section C. So the amendment would be to strike the reference to sections A and B in the title and just have it clean cut at 2-47. And the same within the resolution itself in the final whereas clause, there is reference to 2-47 A and B. Like to amend that to just reference 2-47 and the same for the resolved clause that mentions A and B, just have it 2-47.
Strathman will second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Sanchez moves.
Okay.
Seconds, revisions.
Okay, so do we need to take a vote on those changes or vote, the voice vote? So all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay. All right. Yes,
Madam
Ms.
Chair?
Juby, Ms. Juby, and then, yes, ma'am.
I have a couple comments to make on page 437 under number 6. It says a member called to order shall immediately take their seats. We don't rise, so I don't understand why when we were modifying that we didn't strike that. And I don't know how we do that. I don't generally like to do floor amendments because I think they confuse everyone. So I'm just going to move on with that and go to my second thing, which is under 16C, where it discusses how long people are allowed to speak. I know there was a lot of debate about changing from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. As much as I like 5 minutes for when you're on topic, 3 minutes allows many more people to talk. So I'm in support of 3 minutes. However, I recognize how intimidating it is to come to a meeting and stand up and collect your thoughts and how you have to reschedule your day. I've been on both sides of the table before. I am not a proponent of shortening the amount of time that we give people. I personally believe, and I've always believed this when I was on the school board, and now, if you come to a meeting and you have something valuable to say and you do it in a civil manner, you should be allowed to be heard. So I personally will not be supporting anything that reduces the time. I would advocate to allow on topic meetings for an hour and off topic for half an hour. But I think an hour and a half is not what's holding up our meetings. That's a determined time. We can pretty much guess it. People will probably pretty much start to suss it out and have people not say the same thing. So again, I don't like floor amendments, so I'm not going to be amending it, but I will not support anything that takes away time.
Yeah. Currently at 45 minutes, which is the existing time.
And I'm suggesting that it should go to an hour and a half hour. I think we took away the 15 minutes, didn't we?
No,
No,
We
it's
just
40,
kept the
45.
same.
it's the
Okay,
same.
so I'm just going to be voting no on this.
It's the same.
It's the same. And we can, Mr. Frank? Just to clarify for all of us, please, if the public has an opportunity to, with additional conversation, they need to have additional presentation for whatever reason, this board has the capacity to extend that time without question.
Frank, SEO Frank, yes, you have complete control over the duration, the style, the type. You just can't prevent it.
Yes, of course, of course. So we can't extend it further than the 45 minutes that's in here. Yes.
Thank you. Sure. I do have few questions with respect to the people rising to address. I mean, I think on page 436, number 4, every member previous to speaking shall rise.
That was
Says
stricken.
shall, oh, rises.
No.
It's crossed out.
It's
okay.
crossed out. It's crossed out.
On number 5, it says 2 or more members request. So is 5 irrelevant then?
Every member being shall request recognition from the chair.
Yes, SEO Frank.
Calls a tie.
So
Oh,
Yes,
both
Mr.
rise have been taken out of 4 and 5. 5 is still relevant because we're talking about who may speak first. So it's request recognition is what we changed it to. So when you look at these kind of red lines, anything that's crossed out has been taken out, anything that's underlined has been added.
thank you.
To Ms.
Shepherd.
To Ms. Juby's point, the take a seat, your seat is really the parliamentary equivalent of saying that you're done. If you're called to order, then you lose the floor. Then because of the old language, I think that's why it still says, take your seat. You could just say that shall, lose the, lose the floor. Instead of take their seat.
The seat's fine. Ms. Gums? No, hold on, and Mr. Who is that? Mr. Linder, your hand is up.
Yeah, I think that this proposal allows more people to speak. I think if you go back and look at the videos, the people who go 5 minutes very often make the same point 3 times in their 5 minutes. And then somebody at the end of the list doesn't get to speak because we used up all the time. So I think reducing everybody to 3 minutes allows for more people to speak. I think that our county board meetings are running so long. People have the opportunity to use the phones. We all have county voicemail and it's all posted online. They have opportunity to use email. They have opportunity to ask us to meet with them individually about issues. It's not like they're not being heard if they want to be heard. I get emails all the time. And if they're in my district, I respond. If they're not in my district, I often refer it off to the person in their district. But I do think that 45 minutes is the time we can afford, and we can get more people in if we let more people speak by reducing the time to 3 minutes for every speaker.
Thank you. Mr. Iqbal?
Madam Chair, this is the first time I'm looking at these changes. So this is the first reading. Are we voting on it or simply discussing it?
We are
First reading. This is
first reading. First reading.
No vote. Okay, that's good.
All right. Yes, Mr. Sanchez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is something that has come up since I've started on the board. It's come up more recently as well. And it's the issue of whether or not resolutions or items on an agenda at a committee that are forwarded are found on either the executive or the county board committee agenda. It's not always an issue, but sometimes it has come up. And looking at the code in section C, it doesn't specify that items that are approved by a previous committee are required to be placed on the next agenda along the committee flow. I think the way that we operate, it's a committee structure. This board really, isn't supposed to be hashing everything out. There's a lot of work that's supposed to get done in committees that does get done in committees. And some things still need to be discussed at this level, but for the most part, if it gets forwarded by committee, I've always felt that it should be heard by the following committees and ultimately by the county board if, the executive committee approves that. So I would like to make an amendment under section C, number 1, right after that sentence, adding a sentence that says, while the chairperson reserves the right to place items on the executive committee and county board agenda, the executive committee and county board agendas shall include all items approved by previous committees. And I would ask for a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Young, second.
Where is that?
We're looking.
There's
at
section C.
39.
Page number 439.
What number is that?
That's number 1.
Just anecdotally, it has been requested by board members that if there's going to be any change of significant change, not just grammatical changes, but if there's any substantive changes, if you could please type that out and submit it so that we can pull it up and review it, because it's hard to hear it orally, because these are very important additions that we'd be making, and it's nice to be able to read it. So instead of just hearing it.
And I apologize for that. I lost my piece of paper that I meant to send out to everyone.
But just a recommendation going forward. That way we can evaluate it appropriately.
Madam Chair, in that respect, would we get an editable copy so we can put the red lines or strike throughs?
Well, if it's a recommendation being brought for the board, that would be the next second onto that. This would be in addition to coming from the floor. So, Mr. Sanchez, could you please read that slowly? And
Yes. Yes, and again, the overarching idea is that anything that is approved by a previous committee that item will be found on the following agenda along the committee flow. So the wording I'm proposing is, while the chairperson reserves the right to place items on the executive committee and county board agenda.
Okay, hold on, I'm writing. Where the chairperson
C1.
reserves the right.
Yeah, C1.
Are you striking what's currently there and
Oh,
rewriting it?
adding. This
You're
is
adding it?
adding
Okay, so after what's there or before?
after what's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
While the chairperson reserves the right
To place items on the executive committee and county board agenda. And I can type this right now and send it to you all, but we're doing it live.
On a piece of paper.
I'll fax it to you. Yeah. To
Good.
continue, the executive committee and county board agendas shall include all items approved by previous committees.
items.
All items, yes, because they could be resolutions, they could be ordinances or other types of things.
Could be proclamations.
Let's see, Frank, can you, one more time? I just I gotta make sure this is legal.
While the chairperson reserves the right to place items on the executive committee and county board agenda, the executive committee and county board agendas shall include all items approved by previous committees.
That's fine.
Thank you. And I would ask for a
Please.
second.
Mr. Sanchez, I was not being sarcastic when I said that, please. It's really important that we get the exact language. This is a legal document. And it is important that we get a full understanding and we can see some of the.
It's the
attorneys.
first review, so I think it would be okay for him to kind of brainstorm right now.
I agree, but just if we have it in writing, it's a
Yeah,
simple thing.
I'll type it and send it to
It's a
everybody now.
sentence. Thank you.
I normally do that. I
Just
apologize.
going forward. Ms. Juby?
Does that mean that number 4 is still standing?
Right.
Because you've taken some of the language out of 4?
For 4, you're
To-
correct. Because we had talked about that.
It is,
previously.
it would work with item 4. It wouldn't transplant anything found in item 4. Item 4 deals with committee agendas, whereas item 1 deals with the county board agenda and the executive committee's role in that and the chairman.
So you're making, I'm sorry, may I speak again?
No, of
So you're
course, of
making a
course.
clarification between any items forwarded from a previous committee to another committee needs to be put on that agenda, but you're not saying that or you're saying that again that anything that passed through a committee then has to be put on the county board agenda?
Or executive committee.
I don't know. I'm just having a hard time. I can't do floor amendments. I don't know. I just can't follow
Okay.
them. So I'm asking for clarification.
Yeah, I apologize. So item 4 essentially says that committee chairpersons set their agenda in conjunction with, department heads, elected officials, and then obviously anything that is forwarded by a previous committee. So if something goes from ARPA committee to finance committee, it has to go on the finance committee agenda.
And then could you repeat what
And
you
then,
asked
so
us to do?
for the amendment I'm proposing right now, this would be in regards to the executive committee and county board. Because that's separate. The chairperson is the chairman of those committees. And so this just essentially says anything forwarded by previous committees that goes to executive or county board makes it on the agenda. Yeah.
But it's somewhat confusing because because I was just writing pretty quickly. And perhaps this could be something that we can pass over to for state's attorney for their review. Because you say, why the chairperson reserves the right to place an agenda on a committee, executive committee or full board, that must include all items. So
That come from a previous committee.
No,
SAO
Oh,
Frank.
you have the power to put it on. You don't have the power to take it or refuse to put it on if it's been forwarded.
So SAO Frank. What Mr. Sanchez is requesting, the way he's described it, I am in agreement with what he's essentially trying to do. By moving it, he is not changing anything on 4. The only thing he's changing is as it relates to the executive and the county board meeting. It basically says that while Madam Chair continues the right to be able to add things on, she does not have the right to remove anything that was passed through the committee structure. And that also includes the executive not approving something that goes through the committee structure. The only thing I will say on that, though, is to be fair, is if you remove the ability of the executive committee to put stuff through to the county board or choose not to, it almost renders the executive committee moot. Although there is an argument to be said that the executive committee is unto itself just a standing committee. So it gets into a legal quagmire pretty quickly on this.
If I may, Madam Chair. The way I understand what I'm proposing, the executive committee still has the right to put something on the county board agenda or not, but it has to at least make it to the executive committee. And if the executive committee forwards it, it has to make it onto county board.
I think it's.
Therefore,
isn't that the case now?
It really empowers the committees themselves and and respects the committee flow, essentially.
But isn't that the case currently? Yeah.
No,
No,
it's
it's
not.
no, SAO Frank, no, it's not. Right now, the way it stands, each chairperson of their own committee has the absolute right to put on or take off. So in the case of an executive or county board, Madam Chair, you have the right to put on or take off, just like every other member of the executive for their own standing committees.
So are you eliminating the equity so that, just because this is the first reading. So the equity for each chairperson of a committee has the autonomy to add or remove. Once it gets passed through their committee, then it moves fully up to the executive committee. The executive committee then will vote on things that will go forward or not. Once the executive committee moves its agenda forward and passes whatever it may be, whether it be a proclamation, whether it be a resolution or an ordinance. Once that is passed through, then it goes on to the full board. The county chair will have the opportunity to add additional items to the county's full board meeting, but may not have any ability to remove an item. So it's an addition to, not a subtraction from. But my question is, can a committee chair remove items that have been suggested by a department head or by another elected official?
Right now?
As it currently stands,
As is proposed?
as it currently stands. Two-part answer. As it currently stands, the answer is yes. As the amendment has been proposed, the answer would still be yes, because it only applies to the chairperson of the board as it relates to county board and executive.
And standing committees.
So standing committees
No.
can remove items. Chairs of standing committees can remove items. Committees, executive committees, the executive committee can vote down items. The county board can approve items, but the chair of the county board can add items, but cannot remove items.
That's the purpose of the amendment.
Yes, that is, I'm just trying to put it in understandable
However,
language.
Shepro,
Mr. Shepherd.
Shepro, as I understand the amendment, though, it sounds to me like it would remove the ability of the executive committee to vote something down. If it reaches the executive committee agenda, the way it seems to be drafted, then the executive committee must forward it through the committee process to the board.
SEO Frank, Mr. Sanchez, the language only refers to the chairperson, correct? It does not make mention of the executive committee's powers, correct?
No, you went down to
No.
Correct. Yeah, so that concern would not be, this language would only reflect the authority of the chairperson.
But the chairperson is the chair of the executive committee.
So there's a different power that we're talking about. So when you think about something that gets passed through another standing committee and it goes to exec, believe it or not, the chairperson of the board can keep it from going to executive because the agenda is set. Now, once it gets placed on the agenda for executive and then the executive committee submits it to the county board and passes it through, still, Madam Chair can still deny that. What essentially this would do is prevent her from stopping the executive committee from passing something through and changing it, or a situation where a chairperson refuses to put it on executive to even be considered. As we've talked about in the past, when that happens, a member of the committee can bring it under new business and have it put on the next month, but that's the only recourse right now. So the concern I've had as it relates to these kind of changes is I always want the ability to add, because if you don't have the ability to add, what if there's an emergency, some legal concern that we have to get it added on the very next county board meeting? That issue is addressed here. I do not have any legal concerns. It's strictly a policy decision on whether or not you want to restrict the chairperson as it relates to preventing her from taking something off if she deems that to be so.
Linder, please.
Mr. Linder.
I understand what Mr. Sanchez is trying to do. I have some concerns about whether we should be looking then at some of these things that go through a chain of committees. Do they have to go through the whole chain till they get up to executive, as long as they're not being referred back for review or revision? I think this concept that Mr. Sanchez is working on needs to be kind of workshopped and played around and come back with more detail when we have second reading.
Well, the second, may I have a procedural question? When we go through, because this is important, when we go through second reading, it is a final document. Is that not correct?
No, you can amend it at,
Yeah, at any time.
no, you can amend it at any time before final passage or vote it down.
So if we can amend it, and then that is not considered the second reading, then that is again a revised reading?
No, the whole concept is it just needs to come up for the first time today. And then the actual vote, the final vote on the material substance does not happen until the next month. So any kind of changes can always be re-amended backwards if somebody changes their mind.
All right, I see your hand up. If I could just make one suggestion with this, there's been a lot of, you brought up interesting conversational points and thoughtful points. Perhaps this should go to a committee, because it was mentioned by Mr. Linder, and refer it to a committee, whether it's to the executive committee or do it to, I'm trying to think of a committee that would do this, to actually discuss, and we can always have an ad hoc to potentially discuss this. I'd like to go through a standing committee if possible, would be easier to actually discuss this, to refer this, because this is very nuanced. And we want to make sure that the language is impactful, because once this gets changed, this obviously doesn't get changed very frequently. So we want to make sure that we're building a good foundation. Yes, so, yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I'm at a point with this, having read it over before, now hearing changes. I need time to study this. I mean, I really need to study it and come up with my potential changes, and I think everybody else does. So at this point, you know, I guess we're just discussing, but I think we should all look at this very thoroughly and then come up with whatever discussions or concerns we have at the next meeting, and then decide if we're going to vote on it or postpone it another meeting.
Perhaps, Mr. Young, I'll recognize you. Perhaps we can move it to executive committee. That may be an appropriate place to discuss this. I'm trying to
Then
think.
the whole board doesn't look at it.
Point of order. There is a motion on the floor that has been seconded.
Yes, there is a point of order. Correct. Yes, there is, to your point. Yes.
Madam Chair, I would be willing to withdraw my motion, with the intention to bring it back up next month. I do apologize for the last minute, kind of amendment on the floor, as you will. I guess in my mind, maybe I've just been here so long that this kind of move is very simple. It really empowers the committee process that we have here at Kane County. So I don't understand Mr. Linder's comment that it needs to be workshop more. I don't know what the real nuance here is. I really took cares to cover all the bases to make sure that the committee process is respected. That is all that this amendment is really doing, is just recognizing that that is how the board operates through a committee process, and that has to be respected, even if we don't agree with it. Even if we don't agree with things that are forwarded by other committees, the process should be respected. So I'm willing to withdraw my motion, but understanding if anyone has any questions about what my intentions are here, they can email me, call me. I did email the text to everyone just a few moments ago. So you have the actual text that I had spoken to the air multiple times to you available digitally. And then I'll bring it back up next month. So with that, I will withdraw the motion just to
Madam Chair, I
pull
will,
back on the confusion.
Who was this?
and I will remove my second.
Actually, I think Mr.
Second
Young.
that. Second. All right, so we have a motion to withdraw, so that is. Okay.
There's nothing else.
It's withdrawn.
Withdrawn. All right, any other discussion? Mr. Young?
David Young. The, I'd say the biggest issue I've got with this ordinance is 16H and 16I, where it says 16H, speakers shall refrain from statements or remarks that concern the private activities or lifestyles of individual county employees that are wholly unrelated to the business of the county. And then section 16I says individuals addressing the board shall refrain from statements, remarks, or conduct that is disruptive to the conduct of the county board, which causes a disturbance. I think both of these are totally subjective. And quite frankly, I think that censorship, if you're not allowing the public, that someone mentioned it today, that pays our salaries to be able to say what they want to say. And that means if they want to refer to a individual, they should be able to refer to a individual. And in this draft, it has, well, quite honestly, I think that those need to be removed. And if you do find that if a person is disruptive per the Roberts Rule of Order, the chairman can have them removed. I mean, there are section 61(7) and 61(19) in Robert's Rules of Order that allow the chairman to remove people that are disruptive. Mavis Bates did this at the Environmental and Energy meeting in June. So I would make a motion to remove these two sections from this draft as it is due to its censorship.
So there's a motion to remove number on page 439 of your board book, number H and I of section 15.
16H and 16H and 16I,
16, you're absolutely correct.
16.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All righty. So discussion. Ms. Strathman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think to have something like this on the rules is important. I think there's a certain amount of decorum that needs to happen so that we can attend to the duty and the business at hand. I think the board generally tries to treat with respect our speakers, and I think it's not asking too much to expect that in return.
Madam Chair.
Yes, yes.
I'd be interested to know the state's attorney's position on this because it seems to me that we should not be telling the members of the public, you know, or judging whether they're going out of bounds into someone's private lives. There's a lot of things, we're all subject to this. We have private lives that we're subject to attack on. What are your thoughts, Jamie or John?
So I think that's more of a policy decision than anything. So I'm going to give you two answers. As the state's attorney legally, what we're putting in here, the suggestions that have been made, these are things that we can do to restrict or to enhance the meetings that we're having. If you're asking me as the state's attorney who's not the one giving you legal advice, I think it is the wrong way to go to attempt to restrict anybody's voice in here while maintaining the decorum of what you're supposed to do. They have a right to say whatever it is that they want to say against any elected official, including me. And this is the best forum in which for them to do so. So I do understand limiting time because we do have to be cognizant of that for every single person here, but also these individuals who do tend to come here and spend hours having to watch through this. So if you're asking my recommendation for policy, I would do the least amount you possibly can do to limit somebody's voice.
Comes. Okay, thank you. Hold on, Ms. Combs. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have to say that I agree with what my colleagues Juby and Young have said. I think I would caution us against the perception, as state's attorney just mentioned, that we're trying to limit people's speech. I feel that as an elected official, this is part of my job. And so I would be in favor of reducing the time only and only if we added the ability for another speaker, another 3 minutes or another 6 minutes or possibly another 10 minutes. I know the time doesn't work out, but I really don't want to just limit time to give the folks that do sit here for hours on end the perception that we are limiting what they have to say. Now, the flip side of that is that with whoever is sitting in that chair is the chairmanship. And so a certain decor is required because of democracy, because of the respect that the chair deserves. In my opinion, if the chair says you're done, then you're done because you've been allotted the 3 minutes or the 5 minutes. And sometimes I think the envelope is pushed a little bit by our public. But I think that also comes from the fact that I've heard people speaking public comment. I've heard it today where people feel stifled and people feel like they're not heard and they have to speak fast. So if we change our policy and had an open air of real concern and real time for folks to understand, I think it would change the climate that we're currently experiencing. Thank you.
I would thank you for those comments, but I would like to clarify H and Mr. Young, just clarification. I'm reading it and it says individual county employees, not elected officials. So are we allowing would we encourage, allow conversation that will impact the lifestyle of individual county employees, our staff, rather than elected officials?
I don't think you can restrict it under the
Madam Chair.
statutes.
I mean, that there are employees. Yes, Ms. Combs.
Yeah, just to exactly that point, I wanted to clarify that as well because the state's attorney spoke on the elected officials completely separate from county employees. It may in fact change the position of the state's attorney, and I will give her the opportunity to address.
So again, this board legally is able to set rules for decorum purposes. But I would caution doing so when it runs afoul of a person's First Amendment right. Understanding that H doesn't talk about elected officials, but it does talk about individual county employees. And when you're looking at the language, shall refrain from statements or remarks that concern the private activities or lifestyles of an individual county employee, you have to look at, does a person have a First Amendment right to come before a board during public speech to say whatever it is that the person wants, as long as it doesn't affect the decorum of this meeting? That's the policy that you have to look at. Dependent on that, I can see a statement made that completely runs afoul of this. We've had speakers who have come in, not recently, thankfully, but a speaker who's super not a fan of mine, but he will come in and he will use profanity and he will make statements that are not based in fact. Is that First Amendment for him to say it against me? 100% yes, because I'm an elected official. Does it mean that's the same guideline for a person who just happens to work here in the county? No, it does not. I think that that is very general and vague, and it may have to be a situation by situation that we deal with it when a person comes in. And if the chairperson of that particular meeting wants to try to stop it, that's what we're here for, to give legal advice to see whether or not it falls under a First Amendment right or it's something that we can restrict. So Ms. Gumbs, that was my lawyer way of saying, I think it's fine as it's written. However, we may find a situation where somebody is being put to task on this, and we may have to come in with a legal opinion to say whether or not it could be said.
Okay,
Thank you, Ms. Moss.
all right. Then, all right.
But it's my own detriment because it just takes longer. Private activities, lifestyles, individual, wholly unrelated to the business of the county. I am absolutely a proponent of free speech, Mr. Young. We also try to have some guidelines that help good people be good. And to remove this completely and say, well, we encourage you to come in and be slanderous if you want. That really kind of flies in the face of the spirit of what we're doing here. You know, if we're going to be hung up on, you know, we can't insist what they do.
You're not
There's just
encouraging,
one,
it's
and there's
you're
just one word in H that you have to change, which is shall. Encourage, may. Phrase it a little bit differently so that it's not a command, but still a reference to what we would like you to do. And then leave it in there.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Ms. Molina.
Mr. Davis is correct. That was going to be my suggestion, is to keep both of these, but instead of using the word shall, we're requesting our speakers. You can come here for 5 minutes and talk about the weather if you'd like. We shouldn't restrict anybody's speech or anybody's comments during public comment, but I think we should provide some kind of requests of people to just, you know, be nice, just as a person in general. So maybe just using the word speakers are requested from are requested to refrain, something in those words. We can workshop that, encourage to, you know, I don't like the word shall because we really don't know what a person could stand up and say, I want to speak about taxes and then spend 3 minutes speaking about something that's not taxes. It takes more time for us to censor somebody and stop them than it does to just allow them to speak for 3 minutes. So my request would be to just move this back to executive and further on conversations there. But I think we should kind of keep those, would be my request. And because we're working on the amendment, my request is to keep those and not remove them and then move this to executive and spend more time talking about it in that committee.
Yes, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also was going to recommend that perhaps we just change the language to encourage. It's kind of a compromise between the people who want to keep this in there and the people who don't. Keeping in mind also that the chairperson of any meeting has the right to call anyone to order and have someone removed. So that power always exists. And I think as long as everybody's playing nice enough, we can handle some tough talk here. But we can encourage everybody to be nice. Nothing wrong with that.
Again, but my only concern is because of individual county employees, protecting our employees, and I don't know what authority we have to protect those employees from somebody coming in who may have angered them, or they may be in a fight with them, and they're taking it out and publicly acknowledging that here. It could possibly happen. I'm not saying that will, it could possibly happen. And it would be disruptive to that employee. So what is our duty to protect the people who work for us? Yes, Ms. Bates.
I think H and I both refer to behaviors that are necessary for civil discourse. And I don't know how we can carry on the business of the county unless we have rules like this that provide for just decorum in the boardroom.
Okay, and Mr. Young?
Okay, a couple of things. By keeping this in there, you are going to stifle free speech. Okay, you will. And when you look at what happened today at public comment with Brian Anderson, he was talking about Vern Teppe's email. That would not be allowed. And also, when you look at when Vern Teppe goes off and talks about Chris Lawson, public comment, that would not be allowed. Which I think is stifling free speech, because Vern Teppe has every right to get up here and talk about whatever he thinks, and so does Brian Anderson. And if you look at what Mr. Sanchez says, in Robert's Rules of Order, section 61(7) says it allows the chair to exclude non-members of the public at any time, but this can always be appealed by a member of the board, okay? 2, section 6119, protection from annoyance of non-members in a meeting, removal of an offender from the hall. The chair has the power to require non-members to leave the hall or to order their removal. Mavis Bates did this. So if someone is going to come up here and be foul-mouthed and scream and yell, then they should be removed. But if Vern is going to sit there and talk about Chris Lawson, he should not be removed. If Brian Anderson is going to come up and talk about Vern Teppe, he should not be removed or even told not to even speak about that. That is what I'm getting to right here. You're going to suppress people's free speech.
Yes, yes, sir.
Berman here. I think what David just said is pretty true. Historically, I think we're an open meeting. You can come in and you can give you the opportunity. You can say anything you want to say. And we never dispute that at the meeting. Obviously, it rolls off our shoulders if it affects us individually. But people can say whatever they want to say, unless they're unruly, and then the chairman can do whatever needs to be done to remove that individual. But I feel that if you come before the group, you can say whatever you want to say. You can make any comments you want. They can be true, they can be false, they can be whatever. But you can say whatever you want to say. I don't think we can restrict that in any ways.
What about our county employees? I will ask our state's attorney, are they protected? I'm not talking about elected officials. Are county employees protected?
In the same way that any employee could potentially be protected, there are ways to do that. So if somebody's coming after a particular employee and it becomes something that is slanderous or libelous, threatening, there are definitely legal avenues that we can go down to protect them. There are protective orders that we have had to do for people within our county. We're doing 2 of them as we speak, not right now, but we are protecting people within our county. So we can protect if in fact somebody is coming for something that is not related to their free speech rights of being able to do that. Because I have to tell you, these protective orders are there to protect people when something like this happens. So I don't have a fear of somebody coming in here and stepping over a line and us not being able to protect them in the long run with it because we have legal remedies to do so.
But I think my question is and concern, and this perhaps is one of those things we want to take offline, is we have somebody who comes up and says something inappropriate about an employee. It's public knowledge.
But
Can't do it.
but then you have to decide who's deciding what's inappropriate.
Right, and this is the issue with free speech, is that people can come here and they can say anything about a county employee. They can say anything about a county official. They can say something about their neighbor who's not even related to the county because they have the free speech rights to do so. Now, if something steps over a line and it becomes something that a protective order needs to be obtained, we have 3 in Illinois. We also have a restraining order that people can get. There's legal remedies to protect people from abuse and harassment. But that's an after something happens, we cannot pool somebody's speech, I believe as Mr. Young was saying beforehand, by telling them that they cannot do something because of a vague definition.
But this says number 4, wholly unrelated to the business of the county.
I don't think that's enforceable.
Agree, I don't think it's enforceable either because it's public comment. We allow public comment on non-agenda items. That could be anything.
If you want to come in here and complain about the Bears coaching staff, as long as you don't use profanity, which.
Mr. Sanchez's
in that
haircut.
Instance,
Got nothing to do, but that's got nothing to do with county employees.
well, yeah, I think you could come in and.
Let's stick to
sorry.
the matter at hand, please. Yes.
Madam Chair, Gums here. I feel like we've got a little bit off the rails on this. We could talk about this for hours and hours. As you know, Mr. Sanchez and I have had, we had a conversation about there's a lot in this code and other codes that need to be addressed. I think we could literally spend hours and hours going back and forth on these things, and I don't think this meeting is the place to do that. That's just my 2 cents on it, and I would like to move on.
So, all right, so we've been talking about this for some time, and yes, it is important. And this is the first one that we've been working on now for how many years? At least 3 years, and trying to get this thing amended.
Well, to your point, Madam Chair Gums, as you know, I have been working on this and you have a copy of said. So it's an ongoing conversation and I don't know that we're going to fix it here.
So this is the first reading.
There's a motion on the table.
There's a motion on the table
Amendment.
to address number H and I. So are we ready to take the vote? And I believe it is to remove H and I.
16 H and I, yes.
So is everybody ready to vote on this? Okay, let's go.
Ellen,
Yes, should be yes. To remove.
okay. Bates,
No.
Berman,
Yes.
Doherty,
I know.
Davis,
Davis, no.
Ford,
Board, no.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Iqbal, Juby,
no.
Kenyon, Caius,
Yes, no.
Leonard,
Leonard, no.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, no.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Silva,
Silva, no.
Strathman,
Strathman, no.
Pepe,
Pepe, no.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Young.
Yes.
That looks like it fails.
Fails.
So H and I will remain intact.
Please.
In need of work, but for now intact.
This is just a work in progress. This is just a work in progress.
Work in
So
progress.
what was the purpose of the vote?
It's a request.
If you were working and you didn't progress in that direction.
It was a motion to remove item 16H and I.
Like
Yes.
That we skip executive session.
I just have a
Very good.
non-controversial thing. What was originally 17 is now 16 on page 438. We removed the ability to register to speak electronically on the county's website. Why was that done?
Oh, why was that done? Because it can be highly complex because people were coming in and putting, just logistically, being able to put their names on it till about 8:30. And we were able to collect it. So we oftentimes had people say, we signed up online, but literally we did not see them because of staff being unable to access it that quickly.
Because we did, I believe, at least I got it. I don't know if the full board did, a constituent, questioning that and wondering if we could leave that in. So,
But we have this,
I do.
this ordinance does open a different door. Because of the Open Meetings Act, we have allowed people to sign up by noon the previous day to speak publicly through on Zoom with
on
us.
Zoom.
On Zoom. They also can submit any length of article that they would like us to read for submission to the board as well. That would be part of the record as long as we receive it the noon before the day before.
SAO
It's been additional opportunities available.
Just want a clarification. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes, yes.
please, my apologies. I don't feel well. I'd like to switch my vote to yes to strike. I think I voted no. I want to,
This is the previous vote?
yes, please.
Yes. No, Silva.
Thank you.
Silva.
You want it as a yes?
Yes, so that's 10 to 12,
Yeah, 10 to 12.
10 to 12. Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move this item back to the executive committee for further review. I request a second.
Williams, seconds.
Thank you very much. All right, we have a motion, a second to move this to executive. I think well done. The roll, please.
So move the entire thing to the whole resolution, right? Hold on. Ellen? Bates? To move to the executive committee?
Yes.
Berman?
Berman, yes.
Doherty?
Sorry, yes.
Davis? Okay.
Sure. Absolutely.
Ford?
Ford, yes.
Gums?
Yes.
Juby?
Juby, aye.
Kenyon? Caius?
Yes.
Leonard?
Wish yes.
Linder, yes.
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 Ches?
And just no.
Silva?
Silva, yes.
Silva, yes. Strathman?
Yes.
Pepe?
Yes.
And Young? And Young is gone.
He's going.
This-
Oh, okay, so it's going, this ordinance 24 -303 will be brought back to executive for the August meeting. All right, we're going to be going into executive session. We have several other things to deal with. I would like to suggest we could vote to go into executive session that we take a 10-minute break to stretch one's legs.
Roth will make the motion. We go to executive session to address multiple items.
We have to be more specific than that, I believe. Yeah, so
Oh.
William, I'll make the motion. We go into executive session to discuss threatened, pending, or imminent litigation and personnel matters.
And I will second it. Roth will second it.
Session minutes.
Piece of real estate.
Out of closed session minutes,
And-
not today. You can bring them back next time.
Got multiple conversations. Please,
Long,
sir,
takes too long.
could you read it for us?
SEO Frank. Can I get a request for a motion and a second to go into closed executive session as it relates to pending probable imminent litigation, the release of closed session minutes, personnel issues, as well as the purchase and lease of real property for the use of the public body.
Deputy so moves.
Thank you. Second, please.
Gu-
Okay. clerk,
Gums will
roll
second.
Okay, Call the roll, please.
We go in
Hold on a second.
just for public. I have to leave at 1:50. So before we go into closed session, I would request, and it's business, so I would request permission to attend remotely at 2 o'clock, 1:50.
Fine.
No. Let's go.
Closed session. Ready? Ellen. Bates. Berman.
Yes.
Doherty.
Go ahead. He didn't say.
Davis.
Reluctantly, yes.
Ford.
Yeah.
Juby. Kenyon. Here, no.
He's going to
Caius?
the bathroom.
Yes.
All right. Leonard.
Leonard, yes, are we not going to take a 10-minute break then, just keep
No,
moving
we
on?
are. We are taking a quick break. Lewis.
That's an amendment to
Yes,
the,
yes.
the motion.
Linder.
Yes.
Thank you. Melina.
Melina, yes.
Roth.
Roth, yes.
Sanchez, yes.
Silva, yes.
Strathman, yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
And Young is gone. Okay, passes.
All right, everybody online that is joining us for the closed session, please accept the invites. A reminder to those in the room that also are joining digitally, you must also join. The time we will start promptly is 1:10, so please be with us digitally or in the room at 1:10. Please accept those invites.
Speed reading. I'm overthinking it.
Look at it. Oh, you got a special, you didn't like. I gotta, that's what, I was gonna say, wait, heavier or lighter? Go ahead. $5 right now. Sideways, turn it up. so-
Waiting at the local,
No, when you put the sheet
local
back,
watering
it's more
hole.
like the sheet. There you go.
All right, you are in open session, except that your front door is not open.
Yeah, it's code for our front door's not open.
How about my barn door?
That's next.
your barn door shut, please.
Don't let the cows out. Look, I'm all waiting, John.
All right, are we ready? Oh, we are back in open session. Celeste, when you're ready, we can call the roll, please.
Roll call and open session. Ellen. Bates. Berman.
Berman's there.
Okay, Doherty. Davis. Ford. Gums.
Gums here.
Iqbal is not. Juby. Kenyon.
Yes, Chair.
Caius. Not online. Leonard's gone. Lewis is gone. Linder.
Linder here.
All right.
It'll take a long time to load.
Melina.
Melina, present.
Roth.
Here.
Sanchez. Silva. Rathman.
Present.
Surges is not. Tarver is not. Tepe.
Steppy here.
Williams.
Here.
Right. Young, Mr. Young. He's not even online. Right. And Madam Chair, you are here. I guess we have a quorum.
Have a quorum in the room?
10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Nice reach.
Good, very good. We have a quorum in the room. All right, may I please have a motion? and a
Madam,
second?
Madam Chair, I would like to move that we adopt Exhibit A as suggested by the state's attorney's office.
Roth will second.
Closed session minutes. Good. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Doherty,
Oh, yes.
Ford,
Board, yes.
Juby,
GBI.
Kenyon.
Yes.
This is not here. Linder.
Abstain.
Okay. Molina,
Molina, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Sanchez. Oh, sorry, he's gone. Silva. Strathman,
Yes.
Pepe. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Williams.
Yes.
Okay, passes.
All right, very good. Is there any new business? No, I do have one thing I'd like to share with you, that our board secretary, Jane Talish, her mother recently passed away. We will keep you updated as to when the funeral arrangements are being made on our behalf. I am going to be sending her some flowers, because obviously very appropriate from the board. So I hope I have your consensus with that. Again, we wish her and her family greatest sympathy and condolences. So if there's no other new business, Mr. Kenyon.
Since there's still daylight, I'd like to move we adjourn. And
Roth will second the motion.
All in
the
favor?
rain's coming. Mr. Ford, you did an excellent job. You need